On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're celebrating Christmas in July with 5 unforgettable holiday home tours, each one filled with warmth, charm, and festive inspiration. We begin in Fort Worth, Texas, where a cozy home becomes a vintage Christmas wonderland, overflowing with twinkling lights and thousands of ornaments. Then it's off to the English countryside, where a 17th century cottage is dressed in garlands, fairy lights, and a playful palette of pink and red. Next, we return to Dallas for a classic holiday celebration, complete with elegant tablescapes and a tree adorned with over 2,000 ornaments. From there, we step into a vibrant home bursting with color and nostalgia, where handmade decorations, vintage treasures, and a dazzling tree reflect a love of pop culture and personal heritage. And finally, we visit sunny Phoenix, where a hostess extraordinaire shares her stylish approach to holiday decor and festive entertaining. No matter the season, these homes are a joyful celebration of creativity, tradition, and holiday spirit.
Step into an enchanting holiday world in Fort Worth, Texas. On today's episode of Homeworthy, we'll meet Lebanon, who has transformed his home into a winter wonderland. He has thousands of vintage ornaments covering his tree. He begins decorating in November, and today he'll give us a tour of every corner of his home, brimming with cheer. As a vintage holiday decor curator, Lebanon has an amazing talent for infusing every space with nostalgia and spirit. Enjoy!
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lebanon. Welcome to my home in Fort Worth, Texas. Come on in.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 Days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays!
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Lebanon, founder of Vintage Holiday. I offer a curated selection of holiday items, and welcome to my home in Fort Worth, Texas. I can't wait to show you around. This home was built in 1940, and I have been living here since 2019. And the style is just pretty classic of the time period, pretty minimal for that time period. The house was in good condition when I bought it. It's been renovated over the years. And so I really haven't done a lot to the house other than paint, wallpaper, and decorating. So I typically start decorating November 1st or right after Halloween. And I'd spend the month of November decorating. So I always start with my vintage Putz Village on my mantle. It's something that I can get done in one day and it doesn't make a huge mess. So it is the first thing that I do. It's my favorite piece of decor that I do for the holidays. So it always kind of gets me motivated to then get everything else out and get going. I start usually with garlands and wreaths. I use all artificial inside just so that I can start earlier. And so I get all my garlands hung in place without decorating them yet. And then after that, I set up the trees. And then that's when I start to, once all of that kind of foundational layer is done, that's when I start to then bring out all of the ornaments and start putting things on the garlands, on the wreaths and the trees, etc. So it takes me all of November, but it happens in stages, or I do a little bit each day. I like to get it done by Thanksgiving though. All right, welcome to my living room. So this is a little passageway between the front door and the rest of the house. So here I have a little desk that I just think is super cute and adorable. And I've just put it behind the sofa here, and I've styled it with some hurricanes and some amaryllis bulbs and little apples. Over here I have an antique hall tree, and we just hang coats and scarves, and have a little bar cart here. I kind of just like to add little things. They don't all have to be vintage, so these are newer, and I've added these little bows. I liked the way these wreaths looked on the plates. I actually sell these wreaths on my website, so a little trio of boxwood dried wreaths. And if we come along this way, I like to use bulbs like paper whites, amaryllis for the holidays. I just think that that's a really nice touch. So these are little brass squirrels, were my grandmother's. So I've tucked these into the little pots here. I just thought that was a fun little touch. I found this antique clock. It was $25 and I just had to have it. I like to use just old things that I find at antique shops. I found this painting. I love the frame. I love the painting. It has some flaws, but I like it that way. I almost buy nothing new. So almost everything that I have is pre-owned, antique, vintage. Including all the furniture. I only have a couple of pieces of new furniture. For the living room, I have used mostly red, so red ribbons. I just think this dark red looks nice against the green and with all the dark colors in the room. With my fireplace, I decorate the mantle with my vintage putz houses each year, and I like to change them up. I can fit about 9 on here, and I love these little lampposts. They're just so cute. And people ask me how I light it all the time. And I've kind of created my own custom electrical system for it that's all hidden by the trees and the snow. I made these trees a couple of years ago. And then these are bottle brush trees. I add these little old, I think they're called lead flats. They were made in Germany, and they're just the perfect scale for these little houses. These houses were made in Japan in 1920 and 1930, and putz houses were also made in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, but they were a lot smaller. These are kind of elaborate, detailed versions, and I just fell in love with them. I saw a collector who did a village like this. She has the most incredible houses, and I just had to recreate something like it. So I started collecting them, I think in 2017, and I've built a pretty good collection, and I like to switch them out each year. But I have my favorites. Like, I love this church. I think this church is just fantastic, and that Santa on it is original to that church. There's also a little original Santa here. This little snowman. They're just fun and quirky, and I would like to live in this little village, I think. And then on either side, I always put these blow mold toy soldiers on either side of the fireplace. They're really the only blow molds that I use in my decorating, but I just think that they're really cute. And I kind of like to have a bit of kitsch mixed in. So I love to use this old tinsel. So this is old metal tinsel. They don't make it anymore, and I've collected it. People would save it year to year, and so I've collected a good amount of it to use on my trees. And this year for this tree, this is a live tree. It's the only live tree I do in the house. I really wanted to keep this a bit more monochromatic. In keeping with the theme of this room, I wanted this room to be just a bit more red and green and simple, but then obviously I've covered it in tinsel. I was not intending to use the tinsel on this tree, but it felt like it needed something, and so I started to put a little bit of tinsel on. And then with tinsel, I can never just do a little bit. I think I'm gonna just do a touch of tinsel around, and then I end up just layering and layering and layering until it's just dripping. So I rarely just do something all at once. So I usually work on things over a couple of days, kind of put a little bit on, assess, put a little bit more on, assess. So I would say this probably took me 2 hours total to put the tinsel on. So this tree topper I bought this year, I wanted something just white and bright for the top. And it's just a plastic tree topper that I got on Amazon, but it was a little simple, so I covered it in glass glitter, German glass glitter, to give it a little bit of a sparkle. And I think it turned out really good. I like it, I'm happy with it. I have different wrapping paper for all 3 trees this year. So this year in here, I can only fit a few presents underneath here. So I did red and gold underneath this tree. And then when we get to the other rooms, there's different themes for those rooms. But yeah, I just kept it simple in here. This garland, it's faux garland. For several years, I would only use real garland, real trees, but it's difficult to do that when you decorate early. And they dry out and they become a fire hazard. They get sap on your walls. So I switched to artificial garland a couple of years ago, and it's pretty realistic looking. I mean, so realistic looking that you really can't tell unless you're feeling it or looking at it super up close. But I had these custom made, and yeah, I've really enjoyed using the artificial garland. It just makes things a lot easier. The only real live, other than the flowers, you know, is this tree. This tree is the only real greenery that I've used. Everything else is artificial or preserved. I sometimes decorate these garlands, but I just didn't this year. I played around with several different ideas and nothing really felt right. I really wanted this room to be a bit simpler, and sometimes I just don't decorate the garlands. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I left the garlands in the living room blank this year and just added white mini lights. So I have them on the fireplace here and around the doors leading to the dining room and the kitchen. It doesn't look like it probably, but I like to try to leave as many things that are just in the room, already in the room, and just layer Christmas on top of them. Now, obviously, like to put a tree here, I have to remove the table that's here. And I do remove some things, but for the most part, I just leave the room as is and layer Christmas on top. So I don't use decorative holiday pillows. I just leave what I already have. Except I do have one tiny one over here. I just loved this one. I thought this was so funny that I had to get it. So that's the only seasonal pillow I do have. I just thought that was fun and quite ominous, but I had to get that one. And over here, I just like to add some of these vintage ornaments and bowls around. I think that's, you know, just sometimes the easiest little touches are fine and make a pretty big impact. So I collect vintage ornaments. That's probably my main collection, are vintage Christmas ornaments. And then I also collect vintage putz houses, specifically the older ones from 1920s, 1930s. They're a bit more elaborate. Those are the 2 main holiday collections that I have and that I focus on. I also collect a few other things, a few blow molds, some ceramic trees, just anything else that kind of catches my eye. But the bulk of my collection are ornaments and putz houses. When people come into my home for the holidays, I want them to feel taken back to a different time, maybe their childhood, maybe a special Christmas that they had. I want people to feel comfortable and warm and cozy and loved by the home. Gosh, I'm gonna cry. I guess I am pretty sentimental, especially about the holidays. So yeah, I just want people to feel good and positive, and they might feel a bit overwhelmed just because there's a lot going on. But yeah, that's what I hope people feel when they come into my home. now we're from the living room heading into my dining room. This is where I really kind of up the vintage feel. This is where I use most of my vintage ornaments. So since this is part of kind of leading into the living room, I've kept these wreaths simple, which is these red ribbons to kind of reflect that room and that transition. But I've set the table with little ornaments and this vintage ceramic Christmas tree. My aunts all had these when I was growing up and I thought they were so fun. So I thought this looked like almost like a Christmas tree cake. So I've put that in the middle of the table. I've hung little wreaths on the chairs. I don't know if you can see those. And then over here, I have decorated the garlands in the dining room with my vintage ornament collection. So I think that looks really nice, and to reflect the ornaments that are on the tree. And so this is my little vintage Santa mug collection. And one year, I really struggled with how to display them. And one year I set them on top of these Delft vases, which I have here year-round. And I just thought it was really fun. And so I've been doing that ever since. And then I add these little vintage bottle brush trees as well to give them like a little hat vibe. I don't know. I think they're fun. So I don't know how many ornaments I have. I've never counted. I have a couple of thousand at least. I use probably 3/4, 2/3 or so in this room. I have some that I never get out because they're too precious to me to display, but I have sourced them all over. Estate sales, antique shops, eBay, Etsy, really just all over. And I haven't really bought any in the last couple of years because I have too many. And being in this old, small home, there's not a lot of storage. So it kind of helps keep the collection under control. Also with my collections, I really like to display them. I know I just said I have ornaments in storage I don't use, but I really try to display everything that I collect. So I don't like to just collect just to have it in some storage building, you know, across town. I really want to use most of it if I can. So to attach these ornaments, I just use ornament hooks and I just hook them in. Thankfully, this garland is pretty, there's a lot of branching. So they're pretty secure. Actually, I decorated this garland with ornaments before I lit it with lights. I forgot to put lights in it. And I thought there's no way I'm gonna get lights in that garland and not knock off and break 5 or 6 ornaments. But I did, and not a single ornament fell off. So, and I mean, it's pretty secure. That's the way I've been doing it for several years now. I do the same thing with the garland over the kitchen arch, and just simple ornament hooks work. Yes, I love to give this guy a little festive bow tie for the holidays. Yeah, so I've wrapped gifts in marbled paper and I've put them underneath the sideboard here. They're similar to the ones that I have underneath the Christmas tree. I just thought it needed this kind of fullness here. I don't really put anything underneath here of interest outside of the holidays, so I felt like it needed this kind of overabundance of gifts here to kind of just add to this overabundance in this room. I made these crackers. These are called Christmas crackers. These don't actually crack. The ones you find in the store, you know, you pull on each end and it pops and toys come out. But I just liked the way this paper, I had this paper left over from wrapping gifts. And I felt like the place settings just needed something festive. And so I made these one night and added these to the table. And I thought that looked really nice. The tablecloth is a green toile that I purchased that online. It is new. So some things are new. A mix of vintage. So the plates are old, the silverware is old, these cups are old, these cups are new. Obviously the vintage Christmas things are older. So I like to mix mostly old with a little bit of new. I think keeps it a bit fresh. This is my dining room tree. This is where the bulk of my ornament collection goes. This is the tree that I sell on my website. I have struggled for several years to find a really good artificial tree, and I used to use real trees only, but with this many ornaments, it's really difficult with a real tree to keep the branches from, drooping significantly. And in fact, one year, all the ornaments were just on the floor because the branches the tree just did this. So with this collection, with this many ornaments, artificial is just the way to go. And this is a really great tree. It has all this open space here. So I can really get in and place these ornaments in here deep down, and then they're still hanging. So they have just kind of that, I don't know, vintage kind of look to all hang so nicely. I mean, you wouldn't want to put this on a tree that is too full, because then you wouldn't be able to kind of see all of this, this kind of dripping effect of the ornaments. And then you can't layer it as well. So this tree allows all this layering. And then this base. So this base I also sell on my website. Sorry, this is becoming an ad for all my products, but I love this tree base. I struggle with what to do underneath the tree, so I normally just put a bunch of gifts, and I always think that looks great, but having this antique style tree base, I just think makes the tree look, I just think it looks really nice. It dresses up the tree. So, and then I've topped the tree with a vintage tree topper. I think it was made in Poland. And then I use these vintage style LED Christmas lights. These don't get hot. My friends at True Tone developed these, and these are just the most amazing thing. Because I used to use all vintage lights, and they were very, very hot and would easily melt this tree. So it's a good invention for those of us who like this vintage look but don't want the danger involved. So I typically, when I decorate the tree with this tree, I typically decorate a section at a time. So my ornaments are all stored by size but all mixed together. So I don't get all my big ornaments and put the big ornaments out. I get many different sizes of ornaments piled up on the table, and then I decorate a section at a time. And the reason I do that is because I don't have to hunt for an empty space or the perfect spot for an ornament. If I decorate this limb all at once, it's very easy to see, where an ornament needs to be, and then I just move on. And so I kind of do that all the way around the tree and then up. And I find that speeds up my decorating process. I also pre-hang my ornaments. So I have a rack, and I don't have it out, but I have a rack, and what I do is it's just two pieces of wood with some dowel rods across it, and instead of getting an ornament, hanging it, and walking over to the tree and whatever, I pre-hang a bunch of different ornaments on the rack, and then I just bring the rack over to the tree and just hang directly from that. I do the same thing when I undecorate the tree. I hang it all in the rack quickly, and then take the ornaments off and box them. So I find that speeds things up for me. It makes it just, anything to make things go a bit faster or be a bit easier is great when you're decorating for Christmas and putting this many ornaments on the tree. And I don't know how many ornaments are on the tree. Last year I got 1,400 on. I didn't count this year. I might count when I take them off, but I usually am just in too much of a hurry to get them on that I forget to count. And these ornaments, these are probably a range of dates. They're all vintage. They're probably from the early 1900s to about 1960. They range, but I would say the majority of them are probably from around 1950. And they were made all over the world. There were ones made in America, Poland, Italy, Japan, just a wide variety, and I love them all, and I like to mix them all. And something that people ask me is, where do you find such perfect vintage ornaments? My ornaments are, they don't look perfect like yours, and my ornaments don't look perfect. I actually don't like to only use the best examples, because I think mixing in the ones that are less perfect gives more texture. So you don't have this kind of, if you want a perfect ornament, you just go buy a new ornament, right? I don't want perfect new ornaments. I want ornaments that have wear and tear and tell a story and have been used and loved for years. This garland is all made from antique and vintage glass beads. I've rebeaded it, so these are all ones that I've created. And oftentimes when you find these old garlands, they're not in very good condition. You have broken beads or strings, or they just don't look very good. So I take them apart and I make new ones. And I mix these larger beads with the smaller beads. And I like that. I think that really adds a lot. So for a couple of years, people on Instagram have been asking me, where do I buy this decor? Where do I get this? And with the vintage items that I collect, it's, you just have to go out and find them. I mean, I can sell a few here and there, but what I've realized that people struggle with is, and I have struggled with, is finding an artificial Christmas tree that looks real, that has a really nice shape. So this year I released a line of Christmas trees that I think are realistic, easy to decorate, really show off ornaments and give you that kind of vintage, just cut down from the tree lot feel that is so hard to find. So my dining room is open to my kitchen, so this is the transition into the kitchen. And I've added another garland around this whole opening, and I've layered it with my vintage ornaments. This is the same, I layer it the same way that I do for the garland over the mirror in the dining room and for the tree. Same ornaments in keeping with the theme. And these are just hung on again with ornament hooks. I light this garland. I like to have just a little bit of lights. I don't like to have it, just blinding at night. On the island here, I've just added a little collection of vintage and new nutcrackers. I always like to put them out somewhere. This was a last minute addition last night to the island. The island is hard. There's not a lot of space, and then actually, we use the island, we use the sink, water splashes up, we eat here. So this is not a permanent display. This is just gonna be here for a little bit for fun, and then we'll probably move these guys elsewhere, but they look good here. I think they look fun, kind of standing guard over the kitchen. Okay, now we're going into the kitchen. I don't do a lot in the kitchen. There's not a lot of wall space in this kitchen, but I do love to add these wreaths to the kitchen doors. I just think that is a really good way, especially in a smaller kitchen where you don't have a lot of space, to add some holiday cheer to an otherwise kind of blank space. And then I've layered the islands with more garland. Here I've chosen to just use plain vintage ornaments. I like to use these bottle brush trees. These are newer. I have a collection of older ones and newer ones, but I've put these in the kitchen this year. I don't think everything needs to be decorated. I think sometimes they look kind of the decorated and then plain looks nice. I collect these old vintage holiday cards. Some of them were used, some of them were new, but I've hung those underneath the cabinets this year. I just think that's a fun look. Sometimes I put them in my garlands in the living room. I will clip them in. This year I wanted to do something different, and I thought that they looked really fun here in the kitchen. And then I just add little touches of vintage Christmas in the kitchen. So a little Santa mug picture. And I love these little boots. These are like paper mache Santa boots. So I just baked this cake this morning. No, but I just think that sweets are so nice looking during the holidays. So I love having sweets around all the time. And these were just too irresistible to pass up at the grocery store, so I've added them here for today, and after filming I'll have to have a little treat. So added another wreath here, just simple, with this red ribbon, and then here we have a kind of like a little bit of a bar shelf, and just little touches of vintage ornaments I've added in here. Little bottle brush trees, nutcracker, nesting doll. I think it's pretty cute. I've put the other ones out as well. Just adding these little bit of touches. You don't have to completely, take this all off and deck it for Christmas, but adding a little bit here and there I think is nice. So I love collecting antiques and old things, and I almost never buy anything new. So I've decorated the house with just things I've found at antique shops or via auctions or estate sales, Facebook Marketplace sometimes. And it's just a collection of things that I love, and I don't know that it's a particular style. I've just tried to pull together things that are interesting to me and try to make them work all together as best as possible. The only thing I won't do for holidays is very minimal, pared down or with no color. But that being said, I really believe that holiday decorating should just be fun and you should just do what you want to do. I do. And you shouldn't try too much to keep up with what everyone else is doing or have everything too classy. I think that that just kind of takes the fun out of things. So I really have rarely seen holiday decor that is just too tacky for me. I love it all. There's nothing that someone could, I mean, maybe there's something that somebody could do that I wouldn't do, but anytime I see one of those houses that's just flashing and covered with things, it makes me feel good to see it. So I don't really have any holiday taboos other than I just personally like a lot of color, a lot of ornaments, a lot of things. So doing a minimal type of holiday would be harder for me to do, for sure. Here we are in the Willow Room. So I call it the Willow Room because we've used this wallpaper by Morris & Co. that is called Willow. And so I think that the name is fitting. And this is actually a model of my house that I made. It's not completely finished. I need to add a few details, but this is a model of my home that I've made in the style of the Putz houses that I have on the mantle in the living room. This room is a completely different look than the rest of the house for Christmas. I wanted it to be more of a natural botanic feel, so I've just added some walnuts here to the side. And then these wreaths here, I've just layered with dried oranges that we dried for the holidays. And then this is actually a dried allium from our garden, and I've added dried elements from our garden to the Christmas tree in this room. I always like to add little personal things as we can. And then for the bed, I've put this garland over the bed here. I thought that was really nice. I added some more dried oranges and just a couple of kind of orange velvet ribbons, just to give it a touch of kind of like an old world type of Christmas feel. And then for the bookcase, I've added the same wreaths that I have in other areas of the room, but I've put brown ribbon, and then I've added this garland along the top here with more dried oranges. There's a collection of little Staffordshire figures on top there. I am drawn to red and green just naturally. So most of the home has elements of red and green in every room, just all the time. I'm just always drawn to that. I love gardening, so there's also a lot of botanical elements. So the wallpapers are kind of botanical. A lot of the fabrics are botanical prints. So for the tree in the Willow Room, I wanted it to be more natural. So I've added dried oranges, and we dried all of these oranges ourselves. I've added the popcorn garland with some dried cranberries. I just love popcorn garland. I think it's so fun. I think it works pretty much on every style of Christmas tree. And then I have added some vintage plain ornaments to bring in some vintage in here. And then these are actually alliums that I dried from my garden. And I didn't have quite enough to fill in this tree. So I'll dry some more this next year so that next year I'll have more. But I couldn't resist. I just thought they looked so fun. So I had leftover wallpaper. And so I just wrapped gifts that matched the wallpaper on the walls for this tree. But I think this tree will evolve. This is my first year doing a tree in this room. This is the first year that this room hasn't been a total disaster. And so, but I'm really liking the look of this tree in here. So I think I will just kind of continue to add to this over time and add more dried elements from the garden. And I added these little candles as well. You can see that they were lit. I did light them one time. It was very scary. I wouldn't recommend it, but I had to do it. I had to do it one time, and it was fun but dangerous. So I don't recommend doing that. But I love the look of real candles on a Christmas tree. Just that kind of really old, before there was electricity kind of feel. It's just I don't know, so romantic, I guess. In this bird cage, so I got this bird cage, this vintage bird cage at an estate sale, and I added some limbs and some vintage and antique glass clip-on birds. So these were made to be clipped onto the branches of a Christmas tree, but I couldn't resist putting them in this bird cage. It just seemed fitting, and I just think they're super cute in there. These paintings I got at an auction, and I got them because this guy over here, I just thought he was so interesting looking. I don't know why, I just thought he was so funny looking and so serious and so, I don't know, but he's just hilarious. So I had to have those. And I actually thought I was only going to use them at Halloween because they're kind of scary. But I put them in here and I just thought that they went really well. So they're fun. They just look like caricatures of paintings, but they're old. I mean, I think I'm not exactly sure how old, 1800s, I'm not sure, but they're fun. So yes, I did all the Christmas in here to kind of just go with the theme of this room. And I really think that orange and green go well. I think that that's fun. When you add these dried oranges to a green Christmas tree, it's just a fun look. And I tied some ribbons on. I don't usually do a lot of ribbons on the tree, and the reason why I don't is because the tree that I did before I started decorating with vintage Christmas, I did all ribbons, and this was back in 2016, and I hated it. It was horrible. It was awful. So I've been kind of adverse to using ribbon on trees since, but I did it on this one, and I think it's subtle on this one, and I think it works. So, and then I just like to add other little touches. These are old bottle brush trees. I think that they kind of fit with the theme in here. And then little pine cones mixed in. This is definitely more of a natural theme in this room for Christmas. My love for Christmas all stems from my childhood. I loved Christmas growing up, and I specifically loved the decorations. I just thought that they were just so fun and magical, and I couldn't get enough. I was obsessed with Christmas lights when I was a kid, and thankfully I had grandparents that kind of indulged that obsession. And one year my grandmother and I just got every single strand of lights that she had ever had, and we just stapled them everywhere, and we just had the most fun. So I mean, my love of Christmas comes from just trying to recreate that feeling that I had when I was a child of just, all that kind of wonder and excitement. And so I definitely decorate differently than the way my family did, but I think that there's elements that I bring in. My grandmother on my dad's side, she always had a strand of lights, I mean, just everywhere, like in every garland. So I try to light most of the garlands if possible. And I had two sets of grandparents on both sides who were very into Christmas decorating and making the holidays just super special for their grandchildren. And so that's where a lot of it comes from. Just trying to keep that feeling going. And yeah, so that's why I do it.
Hi Homeworthy, thanks for coming to visit me again. I am Rebecca and this is my English country cottage at Christmas. Come on in.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 Days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays!
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lovett, my English country cottage. I am a social media content creator. That's a really long title. And I would love to welcome you into my Christmas cottage on the Suffolk-Cambridgeshire border in England. We moved here 11 years ago. We moved from the north down south, and we wanted to be closer to our friends who actually live in Cambridge, so we drew a circle around there. And we looked at about 36 properties in 3 weekends, and we were very clear. We didn't want a thatch, we didn't want listed, we didn't want too much work. We wanted something with character, but we didn't want to be too rural, but we did want to be in the countryside. And not one of the houses lit us up. And then we drove here and got severely lost several times before we found it. And then we drove into, well, there wasn't even a drive then actually, and saw this crumbly old cottage with a mossy thatched roof, and fell completely and utterly head over heels in love with it. It was magical. It was like a storybook. There was no one around, and the agent was actually late, so we were able to just to wander around the garden and peek through the little windows. And I think it had stolen our hearts before we even walked through the door. And then we walked through the door and walked into every single room, and we saw the beams that were all slanted and the floors that were wonky, and each step we took we kept saying, oh no, oh it's really lovely, oh no, look at this, oh. And we knew that we were going to end up with exactly what we didn't want, and we didn't care because we just fell in love with this cottage. I love decorating for Christmas. It's like the freedom that you don't get when you're actually decorating your home initially. Because when you're decorating initially, you're thinking about colour schemes, and you're thinking about how long will that paint last and will it work with the fabric. Whereas for Christmas you can just go a bit crazy, and that's what I love. I do something different each year and I don't think about it. I just start, and that's generally how I do my life actually. I just go with it and see what happens. But as you can see, I really love colour. So when I first started, I started with silver and gold and white, really pure and beautiful. And then bit by bit, pinks crept in, and then reds crept in, and I can't help it. It's what I love. And I think particularly at Christmas, you need warmth and colour and joy and coziness. And where we live, it is remote and it is rural, and we are surrounded at the moment by really muddy, dark fields, and it's dark when we wake up and it's dark by 3 o'clock, so you need to inject light and colour and fun. So I bring in as much of the garden as I can carry, and I throw it all over every painting and beam and piano and wherever I can find anywhere. And then I put lots and lots of fairy lights up. So actually the cottage is probably lighter at Christmas than it is for most of the year. I use lots of candles, lots of flowers, faux and real, and essentially I just throw Christmas wherever I can. This is our sitting room, and this is generally where we spend most of our time over Christmas, sitting around chatting and playing board games, and it's all really based around the fire because it does get really cold in our cottage. So this amazing wood burner heats this entire room, which is just wonderful. It looks beautiful, it's super cozy, and you can look dreamily and romantically into the flames later at night when you might have had a bit too much mulled wine. So this is the garland that I created for this Christmas. It changes every year depending on my whim, really. I do always start with a faux garland. So you can see underneath there is a fake garland which is wired, which then makes life so easy because then you can just collect lots and lots of greenery and just throw it all in and wire it round so it doesn't fall off, which is super simple. I use buried ivy, which you can find growing up trees, which gives such a lovely colour, ranges between purples and light greens. I use teasels, which I've collected over the years, and actually found that if you store them for a couple of years, they lose the real spikiness, so they're far less painful to decorate with. I use lots of fur. What else do I use? Little fake fir cones that are sprayed gold and white, which is so pretty. Faux berries. I do usually put rose hips in actually as well, but this year we've really struggled for rose hips, I think because of the terrible weather. So what else have I done? I've popped in pops of red because that's how I'm feeling this Christmas. Not that you would get that impression at all. I've added some little bells and some velvet, and then the beautiful velvet Morris & Co. Stockings, which I just adore. A lovely rag wreath, some little children's decorations from over the years. This is virtually the only decoration that my son has ever made for me, aged about 3, so it's very precious, if a little strange. Candles, again, always candles, as warm as possible, and it just creates a really lovely, cosy, warm home. These gonks we bought years ago when the children were really little, and they saw them in the shop and ran over to them and hugged them, and I just thought, we've got to have some fun. I think as you get older and your children take over your lives, you realise not everything has to be elegant and beautiful at Christmas. You can actually inject some fun and silliness, and they still hug them over the Christmas period, which I love, even though they're now teenagers. And obviously Dottie absolutely adores them, so they get pulled around by their poor little hats, but they seem to have survived quite a few years, so they're doing very well. This is our wonderful wicker hamper of joy that used to have all the toys in, which was wonderful, and now bit by bit, like Toy Story, the toys move out, and actually it's all got the board games in now for Christmas, so it's quite useful. It will be covered in Articulate and Scrabble and chocolates, lots and lots of chocolates and mince pie crumbs, and at the moment it's all beautifully styled, but it doesn't last like that once the family are here on Christmas Day. We tend to bring the big cushions around and we just sit around here really, which is so cosy and lovely. I did originally, well, not originally, for the past 10 years we've had our Christmas tree in this corner here, so it's felt like part of the family, but was actually quite squashed up, and we'd swap the sofas around to make more room, and I loved it because it just felt like it was part of the family with us. But then I accidentally bought a slightly too big Christmas tree this year, and we couldn't fit it in anymore because the ceiling is quite a lot lower here than it is on the other side of the room. So we moved the tree, and actually I really like it like this. I think it looks sort of a bit more elegant over there, rather than I normally get a very squashy, fat, delicious tree. But actually, maybe I'm finally growing up. I don't know, but I really like it there. So last year I went full florals and threw everything I had at it. Faux, silk, real, dried hydrangeas. I just went mad, and I've done that for a couple of years. And I don't know what happened. I think because it's a different tree, a lot taller, and because it's got a more elegant shape to it, it sort of dictated how I decorated it. I think that's probably how I decorate actually. I am dictated to. So this cottage was totally, because it was dark and low, I had to create lighter walls and floral furnishings to warm it up. And it's pretty much the same with the trees. They tell me how to decorate them, so it's a lot more elegant and a lot more pared back. I always start with our silver and gold baubles and little jingle bells and glitter balls. You have to have a bit of fun at Christmas, and for years I just decorated with gold and silver, very simple, very refined, and bit by bit, like everything else, the children have crept in and colour and joy have crept in, and so then I've added some lovely copper big chunky stars and some really large white baubles, ceramic baubles, which I adore, And then we've got the gorgeous beading, which was a new addition last year actually, and I really enjoyed it. So I've brought that back again. It's quite difficult to put up, particularly when the tree isn't necessarily symmetrical, but I figure nothing in this cottage is symmetrical or even. Everything is wonky, so it just fits in. I've also added these red bows. I mean, I know bows are really popular at the moment because they're really delicious, as is the colour red, so we've just gone for it. My little birds. I wasn't sure about these actually when I put it on, but I quite like it picking out the little white baubles. So they're staying for now, and you know, gosh, by the time Christmas Day comes, it'll probably be full of fake flowers again. I'll have probably given in, but at the moment, I'm really enjoying this really simple look. And obviously I have to talk about the fairy because she is my pride and joy. I bought her, I don't even know how many years ago, and I saw her in a magazine and fell completely in love with her and tracked down the maker. And it's just, it makes me so happy. She came in a really special little box. I don't know if anyone has ever read My Naughty Little Sister, but when she gets Rosie doll and she's in this beautiful box and she unwraps the doll and she's so precious. And that's how I feel about this fairy. Unwrapping the tissue paper and seeing her every Christmas just makes me so excited. And she's so sparkly and so pretty. So she has to go on the top of the tree. There's no debating it. Essentially, a bit like the RAF, where if you stay still, you get painted white. Here, if you stay still, you get covered in ivy. So I'm afraid that's what's happened. I decorate our bookcase every year with long garlands of ivy that I pull off all the trees. So really, I'm looking after the trees at the same time. This is what I explain to my husband when I make such a terrible mess. All strewn across the top, and then I've added fairy lights to make it a little bit more magical, and a few bows have crept in. I couldn't help myself. Just, I'm feeling a bit, this Christmas needs just a bit more. I don't know, I think it's been a dark year, and I think the weather's been terrible, so it's been metaphorically and physically quite dark. So it feels like I just needed a bit more fun and a bit more joy. So these bows have brought that. This corner I love at Christmas. We've put a little star in the window and the candle, and it's just one of those little quiet places that very often actually nephews will come and just sit on the cushions and just take some time out and chill and grab a book. And that's exactly why I created this space in the first place, just somewhere you can sit and have a few moments. So it's really lovely when I see other people doing it as well. It makes my heart really happy. Again, I've added some more ivy over here and another garland. You will see throughout the cottage there are lots of garlands. So let's just call this garland number 3, because that keeps it quite low key, doesn't it? I have to decorate the piano. It's just a total joy with the mullioned window, the very wonky mullioned window. More ivy. Found some rose hips that were still going. I have used artificial candles here because obviously it's quite close to the timber frame, so I get a bit scared, so I've used that. This is our Christmas carols book. So every year we are lucky enough to have our group of friends over, and it started when the children were really small. Quite a few of our friends are quite musical, so my friend will come and play the piano because I just flinky plonk a few chords. It's not good enough to be able to do full carols, whereas she can play anything. You literally go, could we play this now, play that? And we stand around and eat mince pies and drink sherry and sing Christmas carols, which sounds, I know, completely ridiculous, but it's really good fun. And when they were little, the children would join in. We had a suitcase of instruments and they'd pull out the tambourines, and then the grown-ups would get involved and they'd start with the jingle bells as well, and drumming, and I think at one point the old violin came out and the clarinet, and it's just a very silly, very fun afternoon. And there's something about singing that once you get over the initial, oh, this is a bit embarrassing, you actually really get into it. And then we always end up into sort of going into 1980s George Michael. But lots of very silly songs then come after the carols, and it's just a really lovely evening. We do have a nativity set that the children, well, I say the children, it's now my daughter, because my son is far too grown up and cool to do anything about decorating. But we've had this for years and years and years, and actually you can see poor baby Jesus. He got a little bit dotted one year, and in fact I think one of my daughter's friends pocketed him for a couple of weeks one Christmas. But it's those memories that actually I really treasure, and I love the fact that little wind-up Rudolph has entered the scene as well. I don't remember reindeer in the original, but why not? We'll go with it. It's Christmas. Why not? So yes, this is very special, and I a tiny reminder of why we celebrate Christmas. So back in the days when I had taste and sophistication pre-children, everything was very elegant, and I would use cream candles. You don't use coloured candles, good grief. And bit by bit, colour has entered my life, even in the form of candles. It's ridiculous. Yes, I think probably my favourite colour is pink. And I discovered these gorgeous rustic pinks, and I just think they're so pretty. And again, just bring a bit of extra warmth and colour. I just love tiny little pops of pink and little pops of red. It just lifts the room, I think. When I decorate for Christmas, it is very similar to how I decorate ordinarily. So I will use the same colour schemes, the pinks and the reds and the layering, and I will try and blend it with all my florals and my chintz, because that's what makes it feel cohesive and cosy. So the pinks, the flowers, I will use rustic elements like the fir cones in the way that I do with the wicker hamper and the wicker table. I will use wooden decorations. I'll then add some sparkle, so like the Mercury candlesticks over there, just to bring a little bit more sparkle for Christmas. Again, we've still got the naturals and the textures, but in creeps a little bit of gold, and in creeps a little bit of jingle, and it's just layering on top. So it still is how I decorate, but it's just a little bit more fun, I think. Probably the only decoration no-no would be tinsel for me, and I feel really awful. And the children have it in their bedroom because they love tinsel, and who doesn't love tinsel? It's so sparkly and fun, but it does not float my festive boat. So it's a no-no in here. I think it's probably because it was so popular in the 80s. My mother would throw tinsel at everything, and it would be over every door frame and mirror, a bit like I have greenery. She had tinsel, and it is really good fun, and I know I should embrace it. Maybe I will next year, but no, for me, tinsel has to stay in the children's room at the moment. Am I a maximalist? I'm definitely not a minimalist. I do love colour, and I do love pattern, and I do love mixing them. Maximalism to me, I think of as clashing colours and clashing textures, and really, throwing everything at a home. I hope I maybe smooth things a little bit. At Christmas, I definitely go all out, but I'll make sure that if I've got red ribbons on the tree, they run throughout the cottage, so there'll be some in the kitchen as well and some upstairs, and I will make sure that it works with what I've already got. So yes, probably I'm a maximalist, but I don't think I'm quite brave enough to be 100% maximalist. Dottie has decided to join the tour. She's obviously thinking it's very exciting through in the kitchen with the mince pies, so now she's on board, and obviously she's not allowed on the sofa. This is our hallway. I try and decorate it as well, just so that when people come through the front door, they know it's Christmas. This is my ever hopeful sledge. One day it will snow again, and the children will joyously grab the vintage sledge and take it outside and sleigh down the lane. But it's been about 3 years since it's been used, so I haven't got enormous hopes, but you never know. Maybe it will manifest snow for us this Christmas. But I like to put just a little welcoming banner just saying Merry Christmas as you come through, and then a little bit of sheepskin just for a bit of extra coziness, just to begin that little feeling of Christmas. So let's now head into the kitchen and try and prevent Dottie from eating the mince pies. Come this way. So this is our Aga, which is the heart of the kitchen. The wood burner is the heart of the sitting room. The Aga is the heart of our kitchen. This is where you will find me for most of the winter, sat in the rocking chair, keeping as warm as possible because it puts out so much heat. It's wonderful. Occasionally when I'm really cold, I will just end up sort of slightly lying over it for warmth, and you love it, don't you, Dottie? This is your favourite spot to be in the winter. She's quite temperamental. She will occasionally just simply refuse to cook anything, and we have to get the engineers out, and it takes forever. So I'm really hoping that does not happen this Christmas, okay? Daimler Aga, just be very good. Thank you very much. She likes to either make sure things are raw or burnt. So hopefully that will not happen. It's not going to happen Just don't think about it. People tend to gravitate here. There is something, the lure and draw of the Aga, it must just be the warmth, but it's absolutely where we spend a lot of time, and it's obviously where we cook the Christmas dinner. We don't have another oven. I know clever people who live in old houses that have Agas will also have an electric oven, which would make a lot of sense, but we don't have that. We simply rely upon her, so we just have to hope that she works again this Christmas, please. Yes, Garland did the beam. I do have another garland, but this year I've done something different, which is very exciting. The pops of orange got me really excited, and then I saw these little robins in Susie Watson. We have a robin called Clive. I've probably talked about before, I can't remember. And he flies into the house. He seems to think this is his home and he should be part of our family. So he tends to fly into the sitting room and sit on the music stand or on the bookcase. He likes to leave little messages on our cushions, which is really irritating, but the fact that he wants to come in I think is really gorgeous. So as soon as I saw those, I thought I've got to have a little ode to Clive within our garland, and maybe it might encourage him to come into the kitchen where it's easier to clean than into the sitting room. Actually, over the summer my sister-in-law was staying, and apparently a pigeon flew into the sitting room. It was a little bigger than a small robin, and Dottie went absolutely wild and was trying to grab it, and she said it was just mayhem. I was actually really glad I was away that day. So no pigeons on the garland, just robins, but I'm really happy with it. I think it's just lovely little pops of colour again. We do a traditional roast at Christmas, and it has to be turkey. There was one year we considered doing goose and everyone revolted and was extremely angry. So no, it's turkey. And I'm lucky enough to have a friend just down the road who breeds her own turkeys. So she will be bringing us the Christmas turkey, which is very exciting. I'm really lucky. My husband does most of the cooking on Christmas Day. We do a lot of preparation beforehand. In fact, gosh, how many years ago is it now? 3 years ago, I'd come up with a genius idea, because we always have to buy so much food for all our family. And I thought we could use our camping fridge. Could put all the meat into the camping fridge, and then we've still got room in the fridge for other things. So all the meat arrived and I put it all into the fridge, and my husband was really excited. He was coming home and he said, I can't wait to see a fridge full of meat. This is going to be amazing. And he opened the lid and all you could smell was cooked meat, because I didn't realise that the camping fridge can either be set to cold or hot. So it had cooked the turkey, it had cooked the ham, the bacon, the sausages, but miraculously the turkey was amazing. So we risked it and we put it into the Aga overnight, and it was the moistest, juiciest turkey we've ever had. So we do now prepare the turkey in advance. So thanks me for being completely idiotic with the fridge. What else do we have at Christmas? We've got to have sausages rolled in bacon. That's just a given. My niece insists upon those, as do I. Bread sauce. I love bread sauce, and I make it to my father's recipe. That was always the thing that he would make at Christmas, and it's just the most, oh, I love it. Stuffing, you have to have chestnut stuffing. As a child, memories of Christmas are sitting in front of the fire, peeling the chestnuts with our fingers hurting by the end of Christmas Eve because we peeled so many. But my goodness, it tastes delicious and it's absolutely worth it. We have roast potatoes. That's sort of my area of expertise. I have almost nailed the perfect potato over the years, again because of my father. He used to spend hours listening to the archers, peeling the potatoes and steaming them and creating the most delicious roast potatoes. So we do have a feast. I make a Christmas pudding every year. I did miss Stir Up Sunday this year, but it was Stir Up second Sunday, and no one eats it. No one ever eats it, so I spend the rest of the year working my way through it, but I don't mind because I love Christmas pudding. So yet another garland, but it's very refined this year. Ordinarily, I start with the conifer and the cypress, and then I add the hydrangeas, and then I add the roses, and then I add the dahlias. But I started with this and just thought, actually, I really like it. I just like it really simple. I had to have a Mercury enormous bauble hanging up there, and there are some little baubles dotted around, and a lot of lights. But it just, I don't know, I think it might be that I am finally growing up this Christmas. I don't know, but I'm really happy with it. Yeah, come back to me in a week and it'll probably be filled with flowers. But I love this dresser. It has our beautiful little French vintage gold sherry glasses that make me very happy. It stores all my china that I inherited from my mother-in-law, who inherited it from her mother. Her mother was one of the first female pottery factory owners in Stoke-on-Trent. So it's very special china actually, and I love using it, particularly at Christmas when I sit with my mother-in-law and we drink out of these little beautiful cups. It's a really precious family moment. Lots of little sparkly plates, candles of course, my lamps, and this was an entire pack of candy canes when I decorated 2 days ago, but I think the children might have been at it. I normally hang them onto the Christmas tree, but yeah, 4 really isn't going to cut it, is it? So that's on the list to buy some more. This island at Christmas actually gets switched around and we turn it so that it's in front of the Arga, so we have our workspace here, which then means that we can turn that table round and add the next table along, so we get a long table to fit us all. And it does mean it's a little bit crowded. We have all our cutlery and utensils on this side, and then we have all the kids' art stuff on this side. And if it goes the wrong way around, you start pulling out drawers to be able to get to your knives and go, oh, I've got some glitter, which isn't quite as useful, but it's a tradition, it's a Christmas tradition. Oh, our tin of mince pies, which I do actually need to get out, and they will make sure that Dottie doesn't get them. But again, there's something joyful about just a simple Christmas tin, but we have it every year, so it means we all know that's the Christmas pie tin. Yeah, it makes me very excited. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So I make my own mincemeat, and I do possibly tend to be a bit over generous with the brandy, and you can really smell it. It's so good. Maybe that's why my son likes them so much. Oh my goodness, I hadn't thought of that. He sat on the sofa earlier in the week saying, I love mince pies, inhaled it, gone. I love mince pies, inhaled it, gone. Maybe it was the brandy rather than the pastry, which I pride myself on. Yeah, I might need to take a look at that. There we go, there's our mince pies, and I put them onto a Christmas plate, because you've got to have Christmas plates again to make it a bit joyous. And I love a bit of Kath Kidston at Christmas. I love a bit of Kath Kidston anyway, but particularly at Christmas. She's got such joyful designs. Here we go. Yeah, dogs you have to be so careful of with mincemeat, particularly with everything you put in them. So I'm just going to keep an eye. Oh look, she's fallen asleep on the sofa, so that's all right. There we go. And now we're slightly guest ready. I just have to show you these Christmas biscuits that my daughter spent hours making yesterday. It was so sweet of her. We found some treacle in the larder. Well, we found 3 tins of treacle in the larder, which we've been clearing out, and my husband was furious, like, what can we do with this treacle? We thought, aha, gingerbread. So my daughter very sweetly rolled out, acres of gingerbread. She was there for hours and hours. This is just the tip of the Christmas tree iceberg of gingerbread, but I just think they're so pretty. And she found this amazing new recipe for the icing that's got sort of syrups and sugars and spices. And as she said, it tastes like the inside of a Cadbury's cream egg. It's so delicious. So I think she might have discovered a whole new means of making gingerbread Christmas trees. So yes, I just had to show you that because I'm very proud of her. She worked really hard. How do you achieve English holiday decor? For me, it's about warmth and coziness, and that probably does come back to old English houses which are really drafty and cold. So a bit like the way I decorate the cottage during the year, it's texture and pattern and layers of blankets and rugs and candles and logs, and then probably the deep reds, because again that brings in real warmth and coziness. So, and of course greenery from the outside, which again I think is such a lovely traditional look. That's how people did decorate. You would drag in half a tree, maybe not the amount of hedgerow that I brought in, but that's part of that traditional classic look, I think. This is our kitchen tree. So yes, we do have a second tree in the cottage, but because we spend a lot of time in here as well, I felt that we needed to have a tree. I think initially I'd bought a tree that was just too small when we bought it home. I'm not very good at sizes or maths, really terrible at maths. So I do tend to get every single tree wrong every single year, but it all works out in the end, because now we have a lovely little kitchen tree and a sitting room tree as well, which isn't necessarily what my husband would have liked, but he has grown to adore the fact that we have 2 Christmas trees and a third one outside, because that was another accident as well. But again, you need the tree to welcome people, so the more trees the merrier, quite frankly. This is our Christmas table. Now actually on Christmas Day we flip it around so it goes lengthways, and then we bring in a spare table, so we have a really long table for everyone to be able to sit at. But for now it's like this, because once you've got the really long table you end up sort of having to dance around slightly to get past people, so we don't do that until actually Christmas Day, and then we get the nephews to go and lift the big table in because it's very heavy. So this is just a little table for now, but it will be how I will decorate on Christmas Day. Again, it's got to be reds and pinks because I love those colours. And this tablecloth, oh my gosh, from Susie Watson, it's their new design, and as soon as I saw it I just knew I had to have it in my house as quickly as possible. I bought the runner as well because I thought, well, then it mirrors it, so I put the runner in the sitting room. You'll have seen that on the wicker hamper, and then the big tablecloth on the table, and it just, my brain likes the fact I've got one in there and one in there and a Christmas tree in there and a Christmas tree in here. It just makes sense to me. Again, I filled it with greenery and foliage and these gorgeous red roses, which pick out the little red on the holly of the napkin and the red candlesticks, and just some more birds for Christmas, because clearly I'm going with a bird theme, which I hadn't even realised, but that runs throughout as well. Well, we live in the countryside, so why wouldn't you? I've used my lovely Burley dinnerware, which I just adore. It's just timeless, completely timeless, and that green of the regal peacocks just makes me very happy at Christmas. Got to have a bit of Christmas sparkle on your glasses, everybody knows that, that's a fact. Add in some glistening silver for a little bit of refined elegance, and then a gorgeous Christmas jug with the robins on again. Lots of candles again, and some sparkly mercury to make it all look sparkly joyous. My candelabra that again starts, well, so it started with just a little bit of ivy wrapped around it, very simple, very rustic, and I've just over the past few days started adding little bits more of greenery. Probably by Christmas Day it'll be about there with different flowers, but for now I've managed to keep it pared back. I've got the hydrangeas from our garden that I dried and put into a little garland. Oh, another garland. Well, that was an unintentional garland, so it doesn't count, which actually I really love over the window, so I've kept it there, and just adds a little extra colour that again sort of ties in the red and the pink and the purple, which we have here in, this is Jamie's great aunt Muriel Pemberton. She was quite a famous artist, and we're lucky enough to have quite a few of her paintings. So the colours work really well with that, and that makes me happy. Colour makes me really happy. I've added some more ivy and some berries onto the paintings, and then some more faux flowers and holly, and I need to get a proper holly bush. I have this amazing holly bush, but it doesn't have the spikes on it, which makes it great for actually flower arranging, but I feel like I need the proper holly. That's a project for another, well, my husband will be really happy about that, for another day. More holly and berries, and then my little heart garland, which I just love. That comes out every year. I think there's something about bringing out the same decorations every Christmas that is so reassuring, and you instantly associate it with, it's going to be really good fun this year, we're going to have a wonderful time. It's not just children that need that reassurance and reoccurrence. I think grown-ups need it too, actually. Our beloved kitchen sofa. Since I was little, I have wanted a sofa in the kitchen because it's where I spend most of my time, really. So to be able to pop something on the Aga and then come and have a quick snuggle with Dottie on the sofa is just one of my favourite things to do. We had to add a little dog mattress to it because for some reason she gets incredibly muddy, and I can't think why. She is a mud magnet, but that really helps with the bottom of the sofa. I picked this up from, I think it was eBay. There was a woman selling it in a cottage a couple of miles from here, and she'd had it in her music room and never used it, so it was immaculate. Laura Ashley, never been used. It was one of those purchases that, you know, when you just think, oh my gosh, how has this happened? How have I found it? I was so excited. And again, it's this delicious red colour that makes me really happy and adds a warmth and a coziness, because these beams, you can't really see that, but the wind comes through them. You know, people's hair will be blowing as they're sitting at the table and the wind's blowing through the beams. So trying to add as much colour to pick up the warmth is really quite valuable in a room like this. So this also gets through an awful lot of work at Christmas, and my sister-in-law and mother-in-law are incredible at washing up. They're so good. They just seem to be constantly here going, just that's done, and you look around and go, oh wow, everything's clear again. We're so lucky. I've added a few extra little red roses and a Christmas tea towel, and oh, our poor Peace Lily. I bought this last Christmas and it's done really well, and then I read this amazing tip about tea bags and using old tea, obviously without the milk in, and it perks them up. So I've tried that, and these guys are going, yay, woohoo, but these aren't looking very happy. Oh dear. Right, well, I will sort that out in the new year. But yes, this is our little workstation. Again, this was another purchase from eBay, I think. Yeah, so lucky. I love unfitted units. I think particularly in an old cottage, if you try and put in a modern kitchen, I think it looks really strange. So I wanted to try and honour the age of the cottage and sort of how it would have been, except that I get to have a dishwasher and a washing machine hidden under the curtains and hot water running from the sink and actually an Argo rather than an open fire. So a little bit luckier than they were 400 years ago. Oh, look, these are from my best friend Rachel. She makes these candles. You buy the set, you get this beautiful little pottery, and then she makes refillable wax. So you just pour in the next candle and you're not constantly using little pots. And I meant to fill these and put them beautifully over there, but that hasn't happened. So just enjoy a very empty but very beautiful ceramic candle holder. When people first walk into our home at Christmas, I want them to be excited. Obviously, I want them to feel welcome and at home immediately, but I really want that sense of excitement, that frisson of it's something different in the year, because that's what Christmas is. It's a moment of sheer joy. So I want people to walk in and see sparkly things and see warmth and think, oh, we're going to have a good time. This is going to be a really wonderful party if we've got friends coming over, or few days if we've got family staying. I want joy and fun and coziness. Let's head upstairs and I'll show you how I've decorated upstairs with just a couple more garlands. This is another garland that I managed to find a space for. I'm always incredibly envious of people that have these beautiful banisters on their staircases where they wind the garlands around, and I don't have one, apart from this one. I might have to garland that in a minute. But I did manage to find a beam that I could do a long garland along up the staircase, so that made me really excited. But that is now on my list for later. I've then followed it through with a couple more garlands across the windows. Again, really simple, really plain, with some little pretty willow hearts to match in with the willow and wicker downstairs. And this fabulous willow heart wreath that I have had for years and years and years, and has come with me from house to house. And it just seems really happy and really at home here, which is exactly actually how I feel too. And so with the creaking floorboards, let's head through to our bedroom and I can show you how I've decorated that. There you go, it's so creaky. So this is our very wonky, wobbly bedroom where the floors do that. So it's a bit like being on the high seas, which is why everything is propped up on books, you will see. This is my poor husband's chest of drawers that I have slightly taken over with my own things, and the tiniest of Christmas garlands. It barely doesn't even count, just a teeny little bit of Christmas, and then of course some fairy lights, but a smattering of ivy, just very gentle, barely even there, just a little nod to Christmas. I went a little bit wilder here. I don't know, there's something about the cottage, because we're surrounded by woodland and by fields, it just lends itself to adding some extra ivy, as if it's almost crept into the cottage over the winter. I know, it's ridiculous, but I can't help it. And I sort of think, it's our bedroom, so no one else is going to Well, apart from Homeworthy viewers, no one else is going to see it, so it doesn't matter if I go a bit crazy with ivy. And then I've added some fairy lights and some pussy willow just to add a little bit of extra white and velvety loveliness. And then I had to do a little bit of chandelier-y glassiness just to match in with our light fittings, which were the only light fittings we could find because the ceiling is so low. It had to be really close up to the ceiling, but actually I really love it, and that sort of dictated how the room came about actually, because and then made me think, oh, it's quite French, these are vintage French chandeliers. So then I ended up going for a French cane bed and kept this room really, I mean, it doesn't quite look as simplistic now that I've added all the ivy to it, but really simple because it's a bedroom, so it should be really calming and relaxing to be in. I actually took the hops garland down from over the fireplace in the sitting room, so that's where it's been since September. And then I thought I need a Christmas garland in the sitting room, because otherwise you need to know that it's Christmas, and if it's just the same one, how do you feel that difference? So very carefully lifted the hops garland down, brought it upstairs, and now it feels magical and special in here, and we feel very Christmassy, and the garland downstairs in a much darker, richer green feels much more Christmassy downstairs. So it's a win-win, really. I was too scared to try and put fairy lights into the hops because they're quite dry now, and I just had this image of every single one just falling off onto the bed. So yeah, I've left that, but the lamps and the candles give enough light. Velvet, a lot of velvet on the bed, which is so important in the winter. Coziness, practicality and beauty. It just gives that lovely feeling of luxury and comfort and joy. And of course it had to be green and red because it's Christmas. Yeah, I have kept it as simple. I mean, there's a little bit of ivy over that painting, but it's really simple. Tiny bits of ivy over this painting and this mirror, some fresh flowers. And then the old man's beard that I actually foraged from a hedgerow, and then I've added some little fairy lights to that. All throughout the year I've been thinking about the little beautiful bits of white fluff, and oh, if you added some white lights to that, that could look really magical. And I was hoping to forage actually to get some more, but again this year's been so terrible, there was barely any in the hedgerows, so we've kept to this. I didn't want to deprive the poor little birds of their seeds, and then just added some little bit of sparkle and a little bit of silver and some lights. And I don't normally like white lights, but I don't know, there's something ethereal about it. I thought it worked really well. But other than that, it's just a very simple, virtually undecorated bedroom. As I mentioned, the floor is really wobbly and it does curve down like that. So we have to have the bed on books. When we first moved in, the first night, we sort of go, feels, why are our feet so low down? This feels really weird. And then my husband came up with a genius solution of just sticking a couple of books under the bed to lift it up. So a lot of people will ask me, why on earth have you got books underneath the bed? But it's not for nighttime reading, it's so that we're level in our bed at night. Really simple, what most people take for granted. These are little things that you have to adjust to in a wonky old cottage. I love Christmas. I used to not really enjoy it very much. And my husband loves Christmas and he has taught me to really embrace it. The children love Christmas. It's time that we stop. Everybody stops and it's quiet outside because no one's farming. It's just a really peaceful moment of the year when we're all together and we have all the family come and stay. My nieces and nephews who are all terribly grown up now, and we eat an enormous amount of food. There's an awful lot of cooking and cleaning and clearing that we all do. And then we play board games, which sounds really naff, but we love it. We all get thoroughly competitive and the boys always win at Articulate, which is really frustrating. This year is going to be the year that the girls are going to win. I'm going to revise beforehand, I've decided. It's just great fun with a lot of walks, and the dog gets petted by everybody, so Dottie thinks it's brilliant. We are outside as much as we can be when it's not raining and horrible, and then we come inside and we light the fire, we drink mulled wine and play ridiculous games, and that for me is just true happiness.
Thank you so much for coming to visit Homeworthy. I have loved to show you our Christmas cottage. It's made me all happy and excited all over again. I've loved showing you my decorations. So thank you very much for coming back. And I am going to go and just garland the staircase now. I've discovered another banister. Very exciting. So happy Christmas and thank you very much.
Hey, Homeworthy. I'm Bob.
And I'm Matthew.
Welcome back to Casa Loma. Come on in. We can't wait to show you what we've done to the house for Christmas.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Bob Gibbs. Welcome back to Casa Loma. I am a regional director for a large insurance corporation.
And I'm Matthew Wilson. Welcome back. I work for an import furniture company based out of San Francisco and manage their regional showroom.
We're in Dallas, Texas, and we're close to White Rock Lake, which is a large natural park in Dallas. We're about 5 minutes away from the lake, and the area is a cluster of traditional homes of Tudors, Mediterraneans, and then the newest addition to the neighborhood are teardowns of big white modern farmhouses. So we got a lot of everything in this neighborhood. Well, welcome back to the living room entryway. I heard lots of you from your comments on the first round of my lack of entryway. Still don't have one, so we do the best with what we've got. Really, the only portion of the sitting room that we decorate is the mantle. And as you can see, that's probably enough. There's a lot going on in this mantle. You'll notice as we go through the house, we use a lot of flocked greenery and trees this year. So I think I'm feeling mesothelioma coming on from the amount of flocking that I've inhaled over the past couple of weeks. But this is really, while it looks complicated and over the top, and I will admit it's over the top, it's really easy to do. So it's just one very long, very good quality flocked garland. So it gives you a lot of body to stuff things in. And really all of these are just individually wired or poked into the greenery. And a lot of this is not even Christmas. So this is just, if you go to your craft store or home store, these are just things that you'd put in faux arrangements. And I'm always one looking for something that's a little bit different, not so holiday. And I like the juxtaposition of not everything being shiny. So, some frosted greenery in here, lots of glitter, lots of ornaments. And then tucked in here are quite a few. My grandmother, as I talked about a lot in the first episode, started me a collection of silver bells. And so there's about 40 Wallace and Toll and different silver bells woven throughout the garland. So, and then we'll move into the piano porch. All right, we're back into the music room, or as I affectionately call it, the piano porch. And I'm a big fan of tabletop trees. So if you haven't tried one, you should really do yourself a favor and try one. You can get one in every room. They're half the time to decorate. I would say they take half the ornaments, but that's a big fat lie. You can see this one's loaded down. And this one I have called my Bergdorf Goodman tree because really, with the exception of the tree itself, all of the ornaments on this tree have come from Bergdorf and are primarily Jay Strongwater, who started making ornaments, I think about 10 or 15 years ago, and I just couldn't get enough of them. And so all of these are Jay Strongwater with the exception of a couple of antique pieces scattered throughout. But I just love the detail, the old world kind of work that he does on his ornaments. Funny story, I had started collecting these about 15 years ago, and I was literally buying, one a year, two maybe if they were on sale after the holidays. And I had my family over, my extended family over for Thanksgiving dinner, and the house was decorated for Christmas. And a different tree, but I had started this theme. And one of my cousins said, "Tell me about that ornament." And I said, "Well, it's a designer named Jane Strongwater." And she said, "That looks expensive." And I said, "Well, they're not cheap, but you know, the quality did the spill." And she just kept pressing, and finally asked the price. I'm not going to tell you, but her response is, "I could have bought a washer and dryer with that." So it's just funny that, you know, as your collections grow, I try to buy less and buy more quality. So every year I'm buying fewer ornaments, but I just try to up the game. So that's my recommendation. Find a designer of ornaments or something that you like and just build that collection over a year. There would be no way I could go out and buy these or afford to buy these all in one fell swoop. So I just love this tree because of the whimsy of the animals and kind of the old world candles and everything that comes along with it. I just think the work he does, you know, with the beading and the high-low effect of his ornaments is just gorgeous. We live in a 1928 Tudor revival, so it's one of the original homes to the Lakewood. And our personal style is transitional, so we do like a lot of antiques. As you saw from our original episode, you'll see it at our antiques and collectibles that we use at Christmas time. So it's a little mix of everything, a little bit of modern and a little bit of old.
Welcome to the dining room. With every collection, we try to reinvent it every year. This year, we opted for most of the primary spaces to be with flocked greenery. This is a beautiful flocked 7.5-foot tree from Porchview Home. Porchview Home, last year I came across them when we purchased the family room tree. And one thing with these collections is that they're very heavy. All these beautiful Polish glass ornaments have a weight to them. And for years, I always enjoyed using a fresh tree, but fresh trees don't typically give the rigidity that's needed for a collection of this size and have it decorated at this density. We paired it with a gorgeous Chinese urn that yet again came from the family room. We decided that the tree needed to be bigger, taller, and more extravagant. And so then it gives it a little bit of lift. It makes it not look so aggressive on the floor, but it's a really beautiful, beautiful trick to use what you have and then also finish the tree off. Years ago, especially with all these great Christopher Radko, years ago in college, I worked for a wonderful store. And we were, in those days, Starlight dealers were a big thing for Christopher Radko. And we were a Starlight dealer in Oklahoma City. And I really started to hone in on things that I loved. And all these great Santas. This collection is a combination of both Bob and I's collection on the flocked. We have our little Mabel, our little miniature dachshund here. She's not Christopher Radko, but she's pretty special. And then we've added over the years, you know, the ribbon, the poinsettias, everything that helps tie the tree to the room. I'm not a firm believer in that your tree has to match your room, but I do believe that there should be an element that coordinates the room to the tree. Hence, we added this gorgeous cinnamon and chocolate and gold ribbon, which also communicates back through all the furnishing and all of the upholstery in this room. Favorite ornament on this tree for me would be, we've got two different ones. We've got a great Strongwater dove here, which I absolutely love. I love the colors. And then I love all these great, like this Patricia Breen Peacock Santa. She is just so beautiful.
Well, I'd like to walk you through the tablescape. We're getting ready for a dinner party tomorrow night. As last time, we don't decorate to this extent and get the house ready without sharing it with friends and family. So we'll be having a seated dinner in the next couple of days. And as I told you on the first episode, I like every table to be different. So I don't like my guests to be like, "Oh, I've seen that before." It's getting to be challenging after a couple of years. So we'll either have to keep buying or recycle and hope their memory's not so great. So this year for the holiday table, I had this skirt made. I wanted a more tailored tablecloth that extended to the floor with the inverted box pleats in the middle, whereas when people sit, it gives a little bit of give where the whole tablecloth is not creasing under. And then lots of comments from viewers last time about they loved the tablecloth that was on that table, but it's in practicality because of the raised petals. And so I heard you and had one made that's a little more practical for you. The setting of the table, again, formal. We're not casual people. So all of the silver, including the chargers, the candlesticks, and all the flatware is Wallace Grand Baroque. And then I've had these sterling silver Coptic crosses for years that are scattered along the table. They're really not holiday. I bought them in Santa Fe, so they're really more casual, just decorative. I've never used them other than holiday. I think they make a nice addition to the table or a mantelpiece. So you'll see them scattered through the table. And then the settings themselves, I like to mix the china where I can, where everything is not so matchy-matchy. So we have, the base, this charger is not Wallace, that is Gorham. And then the dinner plate is Lenox. And then the salad plate is Fitz and Floyd St. Nicholas, which I'm not sure they make that anymore. And then this table can get a little busy quickly. And so I just went with simple archival Fostoria with gold glasses, and then just a little bit of shine with the ribbon throughout the table. So we like it. And then for the flowers, I wanted something a little more Della Robbia. So mixing the roses, the hydrangeas, the fruits, and the sugared fruit. Just thought it kind of elevated the table a bit. And then just to add a little bit of extra fun, added wreaths to the back of the chairs. These could not be easier. These came from Hobby Lobby. I think they were $2.50 a piece. A velvet ribbon, also from Hobby Lobby. I think 3 rolls was $5. Couldn't be simpler. Just get you some straight pins, build your bow, and then just straight pin them into the back of the chair. They don't show, and it gives you an elevated view that's fun just for the holidays. All right, so now if you'll follow me, we'll go into the butler's pantry and then on into the kitchen. All right, so we're back in the butler's pantry, and there was a lot going on the first time you visited us in the butler's pantry. And as you can tell, if you look up at the shelves in the bar, it's gotten a little bit busier. As I said earlier, sometimes Christmas can feel like it threw up on your house, and that is not always a bad thing. So I just decided, with all this amari that we have in these shelves, that why not, you'll see throughout the house, I like putting Christmas ornaments in bowls and vessels and things. I think it's a really easy way to get some holiday without everything being holiday. And so I just ordered these on Amazon because they're really difficult colors to find. So the gold, the blue, and the orange all kind of mimic what's going on in the amari, and love kind of how that looked. And bring it down to the bar in the same colors. And then for guests, coming over, we always have a little treat for you to take on the way out. So these are the most delicious sugar cookies in the world. I wish I could tell you I made them, and I would be a big fat liar. These come from J. Ray's in Dallas, and if you have not tried her bakery, you should definitely check it out because she makes delicious things. And I'll be sending some of these home with the Homeworthy team. And then also on my marble girl, which I just love, we always just put a little sterling silver placket with a season and a ribbon, just something very simple. I see people put scarves on them, and I thought about this year, but I don't like to copy people. So now if you'll follow me into the kitchen, I'll transfer it over to Matthew, who will talk about the decorations in the kitchen.
Welcome to the kitchen. Bob walked you through the dining room and the butler's pantry, and now we're in the kitchen. The kitchen, especially since our addition a year and a half ago, has become more of the heart of the home because it connects not only the dining room to the family room, which we'll get to next. The kitchen, I think, a lot of times presents a problem for people in decorating for the holidays. Many times counters become inundated with things and stuff, and much like we were speaking of earlier, Bob and I like to edit our collections where they seem more purposeful and they seem more confined. An incredible detail, an architectural detail that's part of the house that we typically have nothing on. For the holidays, it is home to a collection of Snow Village houses that my grandparents started a collection for me when I was 8 or 9 years old. And we found that these became a beautiful little representation of our neighborhood, although there are some styles that are not in our neighborhood. This is just a small little quiet area. We have these on at night. They're not on all the time. They're a special reminder of a lot of Christmases and a lot of houses and a lot of people that live in them. So the final leg of the kitchen until we walk into the family room is a collection of antique finials that not only did my sister give, but we've picked up here and there, and we've ordered. Yet again, this is also a collection of vintage Christopher Radko and really great antique glass ones from the 50s and the 60s. And this is a great way, another great way to have a small little spot of Christmas without it inundating this entire space. Because many times during the holidays, when we entertain, the stove gets covered. This becomes really much a dessert central, and people really do enjoy hanging out between the two rooms. But this is another great way. We use these beautiful Lismore tea light holders as anchors for these finials. That way they stand proud, and they're a nice little addition to the kitchen and a small little moment as you're just kind of walking through. You know, most families will say that holidays are the most important part of their lives, which it is on every family, but even as a small child, the holidays were always a very special spot. Before Bob and I met, I always worked to decorate my own home, and then as our lives and years have crossed and grown together, it's only expanded and become the treasure that it is, what you'll see today.
And then I've been collecting or decorating since I had conscious thought. My mom always included us in decorating, and she was a big believer of not tacky Christmas. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but she had very stylized Christmas, but included us in the decorating with very specific instructions. So she taught us well. And then I started collecting ornaments when I was about 9, and have continued that collection 51 years.
We watch a lot of episodes, and I find a lot of different adjectives that people use. This is my favorite. This is the most extraordinary. This is very special to me. And I think all three of those words exude this tree. This tree is 40 plus years of collecting family heirlooms, antique, new. And then of course they're hanging on, again, a beautiful porch view home Christmas tree. This is a 9.5-foot one. Of course, many trees and many years, I like to add a second set of lights. I did to this one. We didn't add any additional lights to the other trees. We felt like they had adequate lighting. But this tree, I believed it needed a little more sparkle, a little more density of light. And as you'll see, these little faceted lights were added from tip to base. There's over 22 to 2,500 ornaments on this tree. They range in antique Polish, antique Czech, Christopher Radko, Patricia Breen. And if many of you know, Woolworths was credited as the first American retailer to bring all these great shiny bright ornaments originally to America. These were always treasures of Europe, and F.W. Woolworth decided America needed these. And I think the first set that I ever saw, my parents had a set of 12, and they were in this great box with beat up cellophane. And there were these wonderful little reflectors, and they were my favorite as a kid growing up. And so as I started and as I became an adult, I would continue to add. Then the joke happened one year, unfortunately, with the pandemic. We had a joke here at the house, either at the door, whoever was ordering dinner jackets or Christmas ornaments, whichever was the volley, because I kind of went a little overboard during the pandemic buying a lot of these old vintage ornaments. You'll see a few of them, like this great new one. Christopher Radko started a new company called Heartfully Yours. This is a beautiful hand-painted, hand-glittered, and hand-crystalled ornament. I have about a dozen of those, but the primary ornaments on these are either vintage, Christopher Radko, and antique. Of course, last year I added, as we talk about, the collections stay the same, but we try to add something or try to make something to elevate or to make it different. These large crystal icicles we added last year. I thought the scale of that oversized icicle really gave it a lot of depth, paired with the little shorter one. Those are very inexpensive and easy to add to any tree. I think with a tree this size and with the density of what's on it, you just have to have a little bit of patience and have to understand that what you start, you have to finish. And so in this room, we set up a 10-foot church table in the middle of the room, and about 35 to 40 Rubbermaid tubs come out of our attic, and they all get organized on the table, and one by one, ladder here, ladder there, the tree gets finished, which takes better part of a full Saturday, a Sunday afternoon, and then I work on it this year I worked on it about a little bit of 5 evenings during the next week. And then finally I said, Uncle, that was enough. Then we topped it off with these great antique clip candles. I think they're really great. I think they add a lot of dimension and a lot of geometry where everything is not just hanging straight down. And also the whimsy of everything. This octopus Bob gave me one year for Christmas. There's just something for everybody to look at. I love this black nutcracker. My mom gifted that one year. There's a couple Santas on here that Bob's mom gifted us as well. I just think, a family tree should be filled with all these great memories and a little bit of whimsy. And it does make the whole room sparkle. The one thing that I attribute and give a big compliment to my other half, Bob, is he is a huge proponent of change and a huge proponent of let's try something different. I personally like to set a space and live with it for a little bit, and he always pushes me outside of my comfort level that we could do this or we could do that, and then we start thinking about it. These chairs, you'll notice, are different. We had an antique pair of English chairs here before. They really just were very impractical, although they were covered in that wonderful period jacquard tapestry. These are much more comfortable, and they actually allow people to sit in instead of perch on. These are a gorgeous cut velvet, ebonized mahogany from Taylor King. Taylor King is an American-based company out of North Carolina. They make an extraordinary upholstery line. I've used them several years over the years where I've worked, and they actually help balance out a lot of the scale of the room.
All right, we're on my way to the office, but as you remember, as part of this latest edition we did the house, I had this gallery which connected the new edition of Family Room to my office, so I don't have to walk outside anymore. Of course, these guys live in the family room when we don't have Christmas trees up, so they're out here temporarily. Those were inherited from my grandmother last year. And then we have a nativity scene, and I am not a nativity scene fan, but I was in an estate sale and found the Holy Families, so Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and thought, oh, that might be pretty somewhere at the holiday. So I bought that, and then, of course, discovered this is beam porcelain, which I'm not sure they make beam, but very fine porcelain, and have slowly filled in the other. I like it because it's blanc de chine, so no color, lots of great detail. And this just is a good example, I believe, of like using things for Christmas that aren't Christmas. So my mom gave me this tabernacle, 25 years ago, and I've really never had a use for it. It's big and it's an awkward size, and what would you do with it? And so when I drug this out this year, I thought, oh, perfect, that can be the creche for this beam nativity scene. I think it works great. And then another little trick is, all of this little stuff can get dark. And so just, I went on Amazon and just found there's these tiny little spotlights, literally half an inch long, mounted up in here. I think it was $6, and it just illuminates it. And so it just gives a little more importance to something. And now we'll head right into my office. Well, welcome to my office. We didn't get to see this room on the tour last time, and I feel incredibly fortunate. I work from home, and of course through COVID, everyone worked from home, but it is such a nice luxury to have a dedicated office. This is also somewhat separate from the house. Until we did the addition, it was completely separate. I walked across the yard to come to work every morning, which is fine until it's 12 or rainy or whatever it will do in Texas. So now the gallery connects the two, so I never have to leave the house to come to work. So very convenient. This, I thought, I'm a big proponent, as you heard from the first episode, of like continuous color in the house and like adding an accent color. So flow through of color. I broke rules in this one. I just decided this is work, and it's going to be a completely different color story. So it is, in my mind, when I open that door, I'm coming into a new workspace. So all blue and white in here. And funny, I don't really like blue-white. I didn't, now I do, until about 3 years ago when I started working on this room. So this was originally a bedroom for guests, and then I took it over as my office. Funny story, there used to be a bed back in this area, table and chairs here, and then a sofa and a pair of chairs. And I had an employee over one day, and we were going through some spreadsheets and some proposals we were working on, and she got up, and she's a dear friend, so got up from the chair and like threw herself on the bed, spread out her laptop. And in my mind, I was like, bed goes tomorrow, and it did. So reconfigured this more as office. So now if I have a team that needs to come over to discuss a project they're working on, I can set 4, I can set 8, we can have lunch, we can work all day in here very comfortably. So really happy with how this room turned out. Art on the wall, I talked about this artist in the first episode, and you saw her work going up the stairs, Carmen Menza. This is one of her larger installation pieces, which I just love. And then the back wall here, I was at our favorite antique store, Nick Brock in Dallas. You should go visit Nick if you've never been to his shop. It's museum quality stuff that is just mind-blowingly beautiful. And he had an installation of these Italian brackets and these faience animals. Now, the pricing was well beyond Bob's means. And there was a reason for that, you know, very fine porcelain and much better brackets. But I thought, you know what, I can take that and I bet I can replicate that for not that much money. And I came home, got on eBay, and in 2 days, all of these were purchased. And in a week, they had all arrived and all went up. So, you know, you can see something and there's high, low. So, you know, even if you can't afford something in the shop, you might get an idea. So look around and take your cues from there. I'm out here a lot. Matthew can attest, you know, he'll come home, I'll be out here working, he'll cook dinner, I'll come back and work some more. So I wanted this space to have a holiday feel as well. In years past, I've always done a tree right here in front of this mirror because I sit here, laptop up, camera, you know, and catches the tree. And this year I thought, you know, let's do something different. We got these really great Chinese containers last year and really haven't found the right place for them as of yet. So, you know, why not stick a Christmas tree in them? And even better, why not stick 2 Christmas trees in them? So for balance in this room, I did 2 Christmas trees. These trees could not be easier. If you don't think you can decorate a Christmas tree, you're selling yourself short. Now I'm going to give you a tip, and Matthew didn't give you his tip in his other 2 trees. Normally when you look at a tree, it's in front of a window or there's a light source behind it and you can see through the tree. I hate that. It makes the tree look not full. You see, especially on an artificial tree, you'll see the armature sometimes. And so we stuff these, all of our trees. So if it's a green tree, it will get stuffed with more greenery. It will get stuffed with tacky glitter tinsel because when you stuff it in there, the light just catches it behind an ornament and gives you a little twinkle. So this one has, and you'll see it in another tree, this just has batting that you would use to make quilts, and it is just stuffed into this tree so you don't see through the tree to the back wall. So it makes them look very full for really no money. I think a bag of bunting is about $5. And then the rest of these, I'm going to give away my secret. I didn't have these trees out here, and so I just thought, well, I'm going to put up some trees this year. There are a couple of handmade ornaments on here. The rest of them are shatterproof, which is our new fancy way of saying plastic. So there's a lot of shatterproof on here. But, you know, you can't help yourself. There's some J. Strongwater, some old diorama ones from Germany. So, you know, again, you can build your base out of something very inexpensive and then just layer on a couple of your more special pieces. The theme of our collection stays the same every year. It's very traditional, but every year we do something slightly different, either placement of trees, what ornaments go on what trees in what rooms. But I would call this a very traditional Christmas. And many of the things stay the same. So the family tree behind us is a little bit of J. Strongwater, lots of Christopher Radko, and then vintage German, Czech, and Polish ornaments that we collect throughout the years. So this year, you know, we did change up some trees. Some trees are exclusively one designer's ornaments, where you could see it in its totality. So we tried to group the collections this year instead of spreading it through the house. Well, welcome back to the courtyard. As you'll remember last time, none of this furniture was here. I hinted that it was on its way, but it had back ordered. So we're now fully installed in the backyard. I have to say, you keep coming when the landscaping is not at its best. You came in the winter or early end of winter last time, so not much blooming. And now we're heading into winter again, so not much blooming again. But we decorate outside because during parties, this is a great spillover for people to come out, you know, make themselves at home, bring food, drink out here. So new this year to the patio, all of the patio furniture is Palachek, outdoor hospitality grade. So if you've not used Palachek before, you definitely should. This is some of the best teak and woven. You see a lot of knockoffs of this now using the woven and teak, but Palachuk really are the ones who brought this forward, this look forward. And I just love the teak, the woven, and the concrete table. I like that juxtaposition so everything's not so matchy-matchy. And then on the back of each of these chairs, again, a simple trick. I just was at Hobby Lobby or Home Goods or one of those and found these Christmas ornaments that were like $1.50 a piece, little wooden snowflakes. And again, just with a simple straight pin, pinned them to the back. And then on the table is a collection of crystal. Most of them are old Auraphores from the 50s, and I think I have about 300 of those. So you're only getting a small sampling of those. All right, and out here we have 4 or 5 trees. We'll start with the small ones. Again, outdoor trees. So again, shatterproof, plastic. Ornaments are going to be your best friend. They will survive. They have survived the sprinkler system. We're in a weird weather pattern here in Dallas where it's 80, 30, rain, sun, and they're holding up pretty well. We had 30-mile-an-hour winds last week and everything withheld. Now the secret is if you're going to put trees up outside, go to Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever your local garden center is, and get one of the stakes for a small tree. Drive that stake deep into the ground, zip tie that tree to the stake. The tree will stand in 60 mile-per-hour wind. So all of these are well staked, so they're not moving. But again, these are just filled with plastic ornaments and okay ribbon. But if you use enough of it and kind of repeat the theme, I think they look fantastic. And then we'll kind of pan over to the big trees. We have 2 8-foot flocked trees. I was not going to put these up this year, and my aunt called me and said she had bought a new Christmas tree on Amazon, and she unboxed it. It didn't have lights on it. She was returning it. They sent her 2 instead of 1. They wouldn't take them back. They said just keep them. So she gave them to us, and I thought, well, we'll use them outside. If they survive, they survive. If they don't, they don't. And again, we just repeated this color story out here of the blue and white. So again, all of these ornaments, I hate to give my secret away. These 2 trees, the combined cost, the trees were free, they were a gift, and all of the ornaments for both trees combined was $42 because I bought all of them at Family Dollar because, you know, they're outside and I thought they looked great. So the garlands, everything, both of these trees was about $21 each tree to decorate. And I think they look fantastic. And at night they glow and give just an extra layer out here. And then the mirrors, of course, were here last time, but we always put lit wreaths on them. So at night, all the boxwoods, by the way, all the greenery out here at night is lit. So you get just a soft glow of white light and some green glowing back here. And so it makes a really nice ambiance for folks to come out, have a drink, or if it's gotten too chaotic inside, you know, with 50 or 60 people at a party, this is an easy place to spill out. And again, with the seating area here, this is all Palachuk, which matches the dining room. So fantastic quality. I mean, the chair weighs about 100 pounds. I can't move the sofa. And then accessorizing this, again, just using a trick that I think a lot of people do is just stuff balls into bowls and put some Christmas ornaments in your arrangement, especially outside. It just makes it a little more festive. And then I just have to call out this little guy here. My grandmother, who I lost last year, I talked a lot about her in our first episode. This is absolutely nothing, but it just has so much meaning to me, is I think I was 7 and she was big into pottery making at that point. And so she took me with her and both of us made a little snowman, and that's the one she made. And so I don't know what happened to mine. It was probably so bad they immediately killed it. But I love having that out there that reminds me. And then, of course, our giant snowman holding guard over the trees came from Horchow. I think they still make him, possibly even a bigger. And then we'll be adding, we didn't quite get through with the lights. He'll also have lights strung around him. So we're really pleased with how this courtyard came out and like how this blue and white theme lends itself to a holiday party. And then the last thing that we have out here, you know, I talked about before, this Victorian iron plant stand that we had just gotten the last time you were out here. I think it was full of cactus before. So for the holidays, I thought, let's just see if we can make it look like a poinsettia Christmas tree. So that's my attempt at it. I don't think it really quite accomplished it, but it looks okay. So we're super pleased with the backyard. All right, so welcome to one of our guest bedrooms. You didn't get to see this room in the first episode, so I'm glad y'all are back to catch this one. This room is a problem for Bob. When I moved into this house, this was the primary bedroom and looked very different. I had a different aesthetic then. The problem is these are 100-year-old plaster walls, and this room particularly cracked every year. And so every year, plasters came out, scraped all the crumbling off, replastered. Next year happened again. It's the hot and cold. And so I thought, I'm through with that. And so I did something that is very out of fashion, which is upholster the walls. So this is fabric on the walls. And I wrapped the entire room in this, I think, great chinoiserie gold and tan fabric, and really wrapped everything. So the settee is in the same fabric, the cornice over the bed had custom bedding made out of it, and then just added in some matelassé and, some Schumacher silk and wool just to kind of, give it a little extra oomph. But I really like the glow of this room. I talked about how much I like gold in my first episode, so this is definitely our gold bedroom, and this is by far the most grandma room we have. And I don't mean that in a negative way. This is a lot of grandma's things. And so really all of the figures you see are the porcelain. I would say everything in this room has come from a member of Bob or Matthew's family. And so, this is I'm not sentimental about things, but I do come into this room and it does remind me of, where it came from and where she bought it and how she felt about it. So then, about 2 years ago, I guess it was in COVID when we had lots of time on our hand, we decided every room should have a Christmas tree. And so this room has a Christmas tree too. So when I was thinking about the tree for this room, obviously I like gold. There's a lot of gold in here, so why not just layer on more? So this is a gold tinsel tree. I talked about tacky Christmas earlier. I might classify a gold tacky tree as gold tinsel to be tacky. Again, what do you do with it to kind of cut down on that? I think you either go hard and go tackier, or you try to dial it back. And I think I went hard at it. I didn't give this conscious thought, but there's a lot of ornaments on here, and they're a mix. Most of these ornaments are German kugels. So they're very heavy. They're colors that don't read particularly Christmassy. So you get this salmon and this gold, and then lots of gold ornaments, and some chocolate browns, and just a handful of figural ornaments to tie it all together. But I really like how this gives the room some life. It's consciously talking to the space in the room. I don't think your Christmas trees have to match the room. This one definitely does, and I'm pretty proud of it. And then I took the extra step, and if you go down, all of my packages match my tree in this room. So I think that's, if you want to do something just a little more elevated, you can do that with your packages.
It's interesting. Inspiration comes from a lot of different directions, regardless whether it's your everyday collections, whether it's holiday. What inspires each individual is very personal. With our collections that we have, they all stem from childhood. They've grown into something a lot more extravagant, but also too, the inspiration from all these beautiful trees are a lot of memories and a lot of family connections and a lot of time gone by and a lot of beautiful memories.
Normal Christmas starts the day of Thanksgiving or the evening of Thanksgiving, and normally takes about a week to go up. With Homeworthy coming, I'm going to say it took us about 3 weeks this time. We started early, like everyone in America. I think everyone in America needed Christmas this year because lights are up, trees are up way before Thanksgiving, so we didn't feel so badly. But I think we started November the 7th this year, and we finished last night on December the 2nd. So yeah, a couple of weeks.
To answer what's the best part about the decorating experience in the home is the process. We both are very process oriented. We both like to cut off more than what we think we can, and we divide and we get it done. And when all the boxes go back to the attic and everything is clean and everything is ready for company, and you can walk around, or many nights I'll sit here in the family room long after Bob's gone to bed and just sit and look at the tree and the joy that it brings us, but also we decorate the outside of our house and our neighbors stop us repeatedly or leave notes on the door in the mailbox about how much joy it brings the neighborhood. And that personally I think is more rewarding than any of the extravagance of it all. Welcome to our second guest bedroom. And the previous room Bob commented about, the first guest bedroom was the primary when he first moved into the house. And this room occupied our den. We had a great L-shaped sectional in here. We had the TV over in the bookcase. There was a couple lounge chairs, a great oversized coffee table. And this is where Bob and Matthew spent the weekend. This is where we spent the evenings watching TV. This is where we welcomed our little baby girl, Mabel, home. Anytime there was anything, this is where we gathered. The room had light on 3 sides, big, beautiful windows, and it always was just a great space where you could look out on the backyard, watch some TV, and have a disconnect from the main world on the front of the street. After the addition was completed, this room was then redesigned back into a bedroom as it would have been in the 20s. We decided to do this wonderful pallet check canopy bed. This really gave a layer of casual quality to the room, and then paired it with these great reproduction French chests. This again is another opportunity where the bed can get a little pricey, but these chests are front gate. They're very reasonable. We did continue the same thing on the walls and the draperies as we did in the first guest bedroom. The walls are entirely upholstered with matching linen draperies with great hem tape and a great fixed panel with these great bamboo shades. The one thing that we enjoy about the upholstered walls is that it gives a layer of privacy and it gives a layer of peace and quiet. Although the density of the plaster helps, adding a layer of batting and adding a layer of fabric to a room, it really becomes kind of a cocoon, which is great, which is really great. The artwork over the bed is a favorite of Bob's. We found a home for it there, which is a really, really, really beautiful piece. And then behind me, we can pan over, there's 2 beautiful watercolors. These are pieces that he painted many, many years ago. His own hand. These great Majolica plates are from his grandmother's estate once she passed. And then of course, one of our beloved dachshunds at the bottom who's gone to live on, kind of rounds out this wall, which I think is a great collage and a great way to display similar colorways of art in a very, very structured way. One of my favorite things, years ago, I worked for a lighting company, and I would love to go on a haunt. These little sandstone mid-century lamps I found over at the local Salvation Army. If you are afraid of doing any of that, quit being afraid and go. These originally had bad walnut stems and these horrible onion skin shades. I think they were half of half. They were ridiculous. I think I bought the pair, told them to keep the shades, and I bought the bases. And then I took them to the workshop, had them take off the wooden stem, had them out acrylic, and then these great custom foil and silk shades were made. And in fairness, they stayed in a closet for easily 5 or 6 years because I never really had the spot for them. And then when we redesigned this space, they just found the right home, and they just are a really beautiful way. That foil shade casts the light up and down, which is, I think, very serene and very, very, very calming. As we round the room, the bookcase is original, but before it was only a 2-bay. The 3rd bay, before the addition, was an enormous window that mirrored the ones over here on the other side. And this collection on the bookcase is of these great quill boxes. They're quill and ivory. We've got a great collection of bronzes and great Buddhas. They're just, it's just a great way. And as you can see, all the different pieces have their own personality. But one of Bob's tricks that I really like is that he wraps all the book jackets in similar paper. That way, if they're not books of any notoriety, you don't really need to show the spine, and you really need to quantify how busy all of the little collection is by something that's a grounding element. And I really like that trick. And that's what we have on this whole wall Yet again, we decided we needed another tree in another bedroom, but much to Bob's credit, a tabletop tree is a great way to introduce a tree without it being so committal and so aggressive and it consuming so much of a space. And this is an enormous collection of antique Madonnas and Italian carved figurals and beautiful Zardozzi crosses. So this is all a very, very religiously themed tree, topped with that enormous J. Strongwater glass finial. Then one other thing that's very special to Bob, this nativity, his grandmother had an enormous collection of Fontanini, and in one of her powder rooms, she had a whole wall full of brackets that covered the entire wall, and that's how she had all of her Fontanini displayed. That way she can enjoy it year round. It was not a seasonal item, it was something of her daily life, and when you went into that powder room, you saw this enormous collection, and during, when we had to pare down the estate, we walked through and we chose things that we knew that we might want to use for the holidays and in remembrance of her. And then lastly, great pair to anchor the great Palachek bed of these beautiful Palachek spa chairs in a beautiful Asian cut velvet with a linen ground. I think the cut velvet really elevates the woven quality. Many people think that woven furniture cannot be executed in a very refined way, that it's all super casual and it's only reserved for sunrooms. But I think when you do add a luxe fabric or a great trim, or you pair it with other things that are a little more dressy, it really elevates. And now we're going to walk through the house and we're going to go upstairs to the primary. I think Bob's up there with our little girl.
All right, well, welcome back to our primary bedroom. Not much has changed since you were here. Added, some sparkly pillows for holiday. Matthew likes sit-abouts, and we have great rows, and I'm being facetious. We don't fight about this. It's a joke. So over on his nightstand, you'll see he has a tree from his grandmother and a couple of German Santas, and I actually do like those. But he loves to sit about, and we joke about like how many were allowed or how many he's allowed. And this year, on top of the armoire, these used to be just scattered throughout the house, these little houses and trees. And so this year, as a courtesy to my OCD, he decided to group them together, and I'm thrilled that they really make a statement, tell the story up there. And then on my side, you'll see it's very plain. It's a bowl of balls, which is a trick I think works universally in every room. And then just a little German figure who's new. I'll talk about that artist in just a moment. So very simple because, as I talked about last time, this being our primary bedroom, my goal is for it to be very warm, very layered, very tonal, but luxurious. So you accomplish that through, a different number of textures and shine on fabrics. You get a real heavy linen that gives you a different layer, and then the trims that you use on your chairs, pillows, and drapes. New addition to the room this year is we have not had a tree in the primary bedroom before, and this year I thought we're going to do it. Number one, I knew Homeworthy was coming back, but really I had started collecting an artist who, and I consider her an artist, all she makes is ornaments. And they're all of these well, they're not German because she's American, but they're replicating, the German and Dresden, all hand-spun cotton and wool ornaments, from the 1800s. And I discovered her at Bergdorf. The name of her line is Vintage by Crystal. And you can either find her, if you're in New York at Bergdorf, I highly encourage going to see their holiday display. It's just magnificent. But she's also on Etsy. So now, every year I'm buying a handful of them. They're not inexpensive, and yet they're not unattainable. Most of them range $65 to $150 a piece. And so, and I know that's a ridiculous amount for a Christmas ornament, but what are you going to do? But I just love how she does these in the traditional way. So, if you look at the guy in the plane, all of this is hand-spun wool. I just don't know how you do that. And then everything is handmade. The propellers work. It's covered with real mica, so at night, it catches the light and flints. And so all of these ornaments are Vintage by Crystal. So check her out on Etsy. Her stuff is just amazing. And then as we go up the stairs, you know, I love my little cause figures. I talked about the whimsy and joy they bring me on your first visit here. And I think Christmas should be a little bit of fun. And so this year, as I was walking up the stairs one day, I thought, my little guys need something Christmassy. So as you go up, you'll see all of them have a little wreath. Again, it's a little bit over the top for Christmas, but I think it's very quiet. Not very many people have noticed it so far, but it makes me giggle every time I go up the stairs to see them all holding their wreaths.
What home means to me, home is a place when the door is closed and it's just the 2 or 3 of you with the dog, with dinner. It's a place of refuge, it's a place of solace, it's a place of comfort, it's a place of safety. And I think many times people get lost in home having to be a certain aesthetic, a certain perspective, but it all really is what's your own perspective and what the perspective of your family is, and embracing that. We do have a little more traditional home than what a lot was on trend currently, but that's what is comfortable and that is what we find to be appealing.
And for me, I gave you my answer of what home is every day on the first episode. Home at the holiday for me is a little bit different. The house changes, it becomes even more loaded with things. And Christmas to me should be excess. I mean, if Christmas hasn't thrown up on your house, what are you doing? So we like a lot of Christmas, and to me it adds warmth, it adds light. It's an invitation for friends and family to come in and share the house even more. And so we love sharing the house with the neighborhoods and our friends, and we love doing the decorating. So it's a lot of work, but we think it pays off.
And we both operate under the guise of not everything that's fixed in the house requires something of holiday. Many times you see publications, you see other friends, you see colleagues, and the house doesn't quite have room to breathe because there's no room to breathe. And that is something that Bob and I both, even in our everyday style, is that not everything has to have a personality on it.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Erica and this is my home in York, Pennsylvania. I am so excited to have you here and I cannot wait to show you everything. Come on in.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 Days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays!
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Erica Kikola and this is my home in York, Pennsylvania. This house was built in 1917 and I believe it's an American Foursquare. When we first bought the home about 11 years ago, it was pretty much a complete gut job. We completely renovated the entire first floor. We redid the ceilings, we rewired the house, took out a wall, all new custom kitchen that we did ourselves. I've just gotten more confident with color and playing with pattern as the years have gone on. So this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th iteration, and this is by far the most colorful iteration, but I also think that I have managed to infuse the most of my personality and culture and lived experience, kind of like you can see throughout the house, and I'll talk about it, different ways that I have put my journey of life into the space, and that's something that's really important to me as a designer. I think that your home should feel where you feel the most safe and healing and calm, and I really wanted to make this iteration be super cozy and nostalgic, but also super colorful. I, for a long time, have wanted to incorporate my heritage into the home, which is being from West Virginia, Appalachia. I didn't want to look like a Cracker Barrel vibe. So that's why I designed the wallpaper with all the color. I love color and pattern and texture and whimsy, but I want it to feel very cozy and never feel like pretentious, if that makes sense, because sometimes I feel like it can. My Christmas style is very nostalgic, very warm. I take a lot of inspiration actually from movies. I don't know, something about it just encapsulates the whimsy of childhood, and I really want to give that to my kids. I'm trying to give them the Christmas that I wish I guess had growing up. Okay, so this is my living room, and it's very Christmassy in here. This is a multifunctional space. We do not have an entryway, so I have a little play kitchen off to the side for my daughter, and this is the star. This Christmas tree probably, I would say, has maybe 14 to 1500 vintage glass ornaments on it. I usually take about 2 weeks to decorate this tree from start to finish, and it is definitely a labor of love and a labor of hate whenever I have to take it down, because it is so time consuming to wrap everything and unwrap everything. But it is just so magical. My favorite comment that I'll get sometimes on social media is that it reminds them of an I Spy page. And I love that, because really you look in and you will see I have a little Santa. We've got little elves in here. I mean, I put ornaments all the way to the base of the tree. So there's just layer upon layer of magic in here. I had my daughter start, I usually do popcorn on the tree, but she really didn't like it, so I ran out of time. But I do, that's like my final step in the last few weeks before Christmas, is to put popcorn and sometimes cranberries and popcorn on the tree. My son has requested that since he saw it on Mickey Mouse years ago. So I always do that for him. So I would say this is one of my favorites. I love pink, and I love hot pink especially. And then I love to collect, let me find one that's right here. Here's one. These, I think they're satin or silk vintage horses. And I have a few others that are on rockers throughout the tree as well. Oh my gosh, there's so many things on here. I use vintage reflectors, and then these little also reflectors. I have little vintage candy canes hidden throughout. And these were handmade ornaments that I got this past summer at a yard sale. This little Mrs. Claus, I love her even though she's like singed up there. And I got this. This is a paper mache Santa. I found him at a flea market for $5 this summer. I was so excited. I think he's so fun doing his little split. And these little bells right here, these were my great grandma's, and I always remembered seeing them growing up because I was raised by my grandparents at their house, and I'm so glad that she gave those to me. Over here, I used to make vintage ornament wreaths, and this is one that I made about 5 years ago. I got my little Russian doll Santas here. I've had those for probably 10 years. This is one of like my favorite first vintage ornament, like thrift finds, if that makes sense. These are wooden vintage deer that my grandparents gave me, and then I made paper chains. You can see I doubled them up over here to hide some of my cords. And then I saw on TikTok, I cannot remember the user's name, but she was doing like every day a Martha Stewart craft, and so this was a Martha Stewart craft, one of her old books, making tassels out of the construction paper, and I thought that was just such a genius idea. We have that, and then all of this is vintage ornaments. I made this bow out of the Garland, and then I only have 2 up, but I made the stockings using the little Busilla felt kits. Pink and red are my favorite colors, and I try to incorporate them as much as possible in every space that I decorate, but I do like how they pop against the blue in here especially. I did consider doing a blue chain, but I changed my mind pretty quickly on that. So no, I don't really ever do a theme. I just do what I want to do. I will say there are a lot of bows this year, so that's kind of a theme, I guess, but I don't really do a theme. I use what I have and then make the rest. Maybe one of my favorite things ever. Earlier when I got it out of the box, it wasn't working and I almost cried. My husband fixed it, so it's a little music box. So back in 2019, I saw a Facebook Marketplace post for a Christmas sale, and I was like the first one there, and there was an elderly couple that were retiring and moving to the Bahamas. So they were selling their entire collection of vintage Christmas decor, everything, and I bought all of it. And I think I maybe paid $200, and I got so many ornaments, so many linens, and this was one of the things that I got. And it's really special to me because I could tell that it was really difficult for them to part with it. And they talked about how their kids loved it growing up. So like, I don't take that lightly, and my kids love it. And that's a huge reason why I love decorating with nostalgic and vintage Christmas items. All right, so we're gonna move over to the other side of the room, and I have this large gallery wall behind me with the wallpaper that I designed. One of the things that I wanted to do was incorporate more art, and I was having a hard time finding exactly what I wanted, and I really wanted to support Appalachian artists because that's where I come from, and as a creative, I know it can be difficult, I guess, there. Anyway, so I found an artist, her name is Rachel Edinger, and I found her on Instagram, and we came up with this. This is like a passion project for me. There are multiple little scenes. So this scene with the water, I gave her a picture. I was raised by my grandparents, and I was raised Pentecostal, and I was baptized in like, oh brother, where art thou style, like in like the little swimming hole in the creek. So that is what this image is of, and it's a love letter to mothers and to women is what this wallpaper means to me. It's a love letter to the women that raised me. So we only put women in the paper, and it's, doing motherly things, caring for their family. There is a scene on the porch, and they're snapping beans, which is something that I did all the time growing up with my grandma. There is a scene of working in the garden, which is something I did working with my grandma. And then there's a scene of me and my kids hanging laundry on the line. And you can see like the rolling hills and the mountains behind us. And then on each little, I guess, tile, there's a border. And I got the idea to do that from pictures that I found of, I think they were Russian children's books. And they had these borders. So I use that as a way to incorporate more things from our culture. And so this is a pepperoni roll, which is a staple for West Virginia. Like, my grandma was a lunch lady, and she has made thousands of them in her life. And so it's just something that's super cool and important to me, and I thought it would be really fun to sneak that in there somewhere. I wanted it to look like three-dimensional, and the wallpaper kind of reminds me of a quilt, and I like that it's the geometric squares, but I also wanted to put stuff on it to break it up so that it wasn't so comic book looking, if that makes sense. And I love just to layer things on top of things. So we just have multiple pictures that I've thrifted, some art, some little shelves up here. Yeah, so I've wanted to hang Garland up like this for probably the past 3 or 4 years. I just never did it. And finally, I was like, this is the year, this is it. We kept seeing it in movies, and my kids were always like talking about how pretty it was. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it. This is the year Mommy's gonna put the garland up like Mickey Mouse has. And I love it. I think it's so cool. And it just adds just like it's like next level, So these sconces we bought in Baltimore. There is a big warehouse you can go, I think it's called Second Chance, and you can buy all sorts of antique things that have been taken out of old homes for really, really reasonable prices. So all of these sconces, I believe, were from the 1920s, and we bought them there. And I think I only paid $50 a piece for these, which is a great price. Whenever we did our last renovation, we tried to do only antique or vintage lighting. And I really like those. And I like how it feels just so cozy right here, like around the sectional. So the sectional it's from IKEA. This is the first big IKEA purchase I've ever made. And I like it so far. It's super comfortable. And it's the perfect blank slate to layer lots of blankets, partially because I have kids and I have a white couch. So there's always blankets and quilts on here, and it's cozy, and there's always lots of pillows. I just like to, I like pillows a lot. Yeah. I did layer the rugs. The top rug is vintage from Turkey, and then the bottom is just a plain standard jute rug. This is my first time actually layering rugs like this, and I really like it. I like that the lighter jute rug brightens it up because the floors are so dark, and that's my biggest regret whenever we renovated the floors, because these are the original floors, and they're not in super great shape. They probably need replaced at this point. But when we did our renovations years ago, I chose a really dark stain, and it shows all the dirt. Anyway, so the jute rug definitely brightens it up, and I wanted to do pink just because I thought it would be kind of unexpected in a blue room to have a pink rug, but I did want to make sure that there was a little bit of blue to pull and tie everything together in here. So I got this from Facebook Marketplace. I wanted to add something with more natural element to it because there is so much painted furniture and painted wood in here. And I found this quilt at a flea market this summer, and it is so beautiful, and it's double-sided. And it matches, I feel like, the colors in here so well. Oh, this is one of my favorite finds ever. And over here, so people always ask me if I have inherited like Christmas stuff from my grandparents or from my family members. And honestly, I don't have a ton. But one thing, my grandma has this house. And somehow this summer, I've never seen them before. I found 2 of them, each for $5. And I bought both of them because it reminds me of her. And this little ceramic tree, this one's not vintage. I made that with my daughter at a little pottery place. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the dining room. And as you can see, we got a lot going on here. I made all of these garlands, and then the little cat ones are vintage dead stock that I've had for years, and finally opened and decided to display them. We've got plates, deer antlers with ornaments. We have a lot of Christmas going on in here. So when we renovated this, I wanted to color drench it in yellow. This is open with the kitchen. So on this side, everything is the same shade. But over in the kitchen, to kind of differentiate the 2 spaces, I did some wallpaper. We added this beadboard, and we put the sconces in here. And these are antique sconces that I got at Second Chance in Baltimore. I paid $8 for each of them, which is insane. We decided when we did our renovations to move the table over. So we moved the chandelier over to just maximize as much space as possible. And so now we're using the window bench as the seating on this side. And I covered the cushions with a sunbrella leopard fabric that will hold up with my kids. For the garland that I have framing the window seat, I found this idea on Pinterest and have wanted to do it ever since I saw it last year. And I just went for it this year, just layered mini colored lights. And these are True Tone C7s. And then I added some reflectors. Now this is 2 different garlands that I weaved together to make it fluffier. And then I made paper chains, and I did the dried orange garland. The wreath, I made that years ago. Above, we have tons of snowflakes. Now I do have, I think 3 or 4, these are, pre-made, and I have some stars that were pre-made, but the rest of the snowflakes, me and my husband made them. Mine are the more juvenile looking ones, and then his are the ones that are really sharp and perfect looking. So we have a nice mix going on. This is an antique chandelier that I got on eBay. I did splurge on this. Usually I'm really thrifty when it comes to buying things, but I love it. I wanted something with color and with glass, and I couldn't find anything that was affordable. And I hung ornaments off of it. I specifically had in mind a chandelier that I could hang ornaments off of, because before I had a fringe chandelier that I made, and I just couldn't do that. So love that. So on the table, I had a very maximalist, whimsical vision, sugar plum fairy. We made this mandarin tree. My lovely neighbor came over and helped me do this, and we pushed all of these cloves in here. And actually, my 2-year-old helped do this, which was super fun. I did the candy tree. This took me about 3 hours. I'm not sure that I would do that again. It's beautiful, but that was very, very time consuming. And I just have a mismatch of plates that are thrifted, some little ornaments on here, these little angels that I got last year at the flea market. We layered cookies, and I have this dish with leftover candy from the candy tree, and then I put a vintage napkin underneath to kind of create like a picture frame effect. I don't know, I thought that was kind of fun with all of the different stripes and the colors going on. And also on the table, if you see, there's little velvet leaves. Those are from the 1950s. I used to use those when I made wreaths. So I have tons of vintage craft supplies that I try to use for decor. This year I am hosting Christmas Eve. So I'm gonna do like a ham, turkey dinner. I love to cook. So I'm gonna do, I go all out. Tons of sides, pies, homemade pie crust, you name it, I make it. And then Christmas morning, we usually do cinnamon rolls, and I make biscuits and gravy and eggs. It's pretty traditional as far as that goes, but I do make everything homemade because I love to cook. When we renovated this, we added all of these cabinets are new, and these shelves. I got the idea to do the shelves from Gilmore Girls. I saw it on there and I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. I love it. I can put all of my knickknacks up there and plants. Right now I have, obviously a lot of Christmas stuff. These are houses that I made a long, long time ago. And I did the little scallops with the beads and the bows to kind of mirror what I have going on the mantle in there. I have a bunch of dishes in here. Some of them are like, they're in queue, they're waiting to be hung. So like they have hooks on them, like this one. I try to collect stuff from West Virginia whenever I see it. So this is from the Cass Scenic Railroad in West Virginia. I need to hang this one up too. This one has a hook on the back. Over in this little corner area, we tried to maximize our space as much as possible. So we do have a mini fridge here, and we're gonna cover this up though eventually with a panel. We're still, DIY takes forever. We're never finished. We did get a really fun nugget ice maker that's down there. That was a splurge. I wanted this area to be my tea area, because I do drink tea probably 2 to 3 times a day, and I have all of my loose leaf teas, and I hang my cups over here. I usually have a tea kettle sitting out, but I put it away. And this is just a really cutesy, homey way. I don't know. I feel like a grown-up lady with all of these little tea things over here. So I did a kitchen tree this year, and this one's pretty tacky. This one has a lot of kind of novelty ornaments and a mixture of vintage ornaments on it. I do collab with a small business called Curated Home Decor every year, and they have really cool little kitschy ornaments like this sardines one. There's like a Diet Coke, there's a regular Coke, and these little mushrooms. So I just mixed that in with these are vintage handmade ornaments, and I made another bow garland to go on here. I have some vegetables too throughout. I think there's like some pea pods in there. I think it's just really cute and fun, and I like to not only just use, antique ornaments. I actually just recovered these because my kids had them looking disgusting. Yeah, I just used the same Sunbrella fabric that I have over in the window seat and covered these with that. I like to use, that's one thing I also like to use, a leopard print in every room in some way. I mean, I like it a lot. So where does my creativity come from? I have no idea. I have always been like this for as long as I can remember. I have always loved Christmas. I've always loved decorating. I remember trying to make wreaths when I was like 4 years old out of a coat hanger at my grandma's house. I have always just made things into something else. I've always taken something and made it into something else. It's just how I've always been. I'm inspired a lot by pop culture, but like vintage pop culture. I love the colorways that they use, especially vintage cartoons. Oh my gosh, the colors are so beautiful. I'm inspired by nature a lot. Everything. I'm inspired by everything. I also like to dress in a creative way. I always like to have my nails. I wear jewelry. I just feel like I am kind of shy sometimes, so I've always just put my personality for everyone else to see in a different type of way, I suppose. So figuring out your style is definitely a journey, and I feel like mine is evolving more and more, and I'm refining it as years go by. I think a really good way is to take like on Pinterest or just images off the internet and put them into separate categories. Things that you love but are too afraid to try, things that you kind of like but don't like and aren't sure why, and then things that you definitely don't like. And then within each category, especially the one where you can't put your finger on what it is that you're not sure of, you can kind of start to see consistencies within patterns. I feel like that's really helpful. And then whether the stuff that you love but are too afraid to try, I always just say, like, people are so afraid to use color, and I know that it's like cliche. People always say, oh, like throw pillows. To me, I think a really great way to try out color is to try with painted trim. It seems like a drastic first step, but I think that it looks so cool and almost always adds something to a room. I think that every room needs something vintage in it. There needs to be some patina. If everything is brand new, it starts to become very generic and formulaic, and it looks like you just went to a big box store and bought it. It doesn't have any soul or personality or depth to it. So I think it's super important to have at least one thing that has some age to it. All right, now we're going to transition over into the kitchen area, and I love to talk about this little shelf here. I saw this, and I had my husband build it for me whenever we did the renovations, and so our old counters were all butcher block, so we use some of the butcher block that we took out as the shelves, kind of paying homage to that. And I just put cookbooks, and there's also a bunch of outlets for iPad chargers and whatnot that I hide back there. And so over here, this little run right here are the OG cabinets that we put in when we first did all of our renovations. And I really did pick out something timeless, shaker cabinets, glass doors, and then just a beadboard backsplash, and then the sink. We did replace the faucet with this unlacquered brass, which I really love. And then we put in the soapstone, which I really love. I went with this color yellow because it reminds me of butter, and someone told me that my kitchen reminds them of the Ghosts kitchen on the Barbie movie, if that makes any sense. And that was like the nicest compliment because it's so warm and cozy, and it reminds me of the 1940s. When I was decorating this room for Christmas, I just wanted to imagine that I was Mrs. Claus and like what her kitchen would look like, and then I just went from there. I got 4 of these on Facebook Marketplace. The listing said that they were from the 1950s from a department store display, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what I'm going to do with them, but I have to buy them because they're so cool. I'm never going to find something like this again. So here we are. I've got 2 more hung in the stairwell, and I had a bunch of haters telling me that they were a little bit too big for the space, but I don't think that's true. This tree was another recent find. I had found the tree that's on the back of this door about 5 years ago, and I loved it, and then just happened to see a little miniature one the other day, which was really awesome find because that doesn't happen that often. I just did more paper chains, more dried oranges over here. I got these pink curtains from Etsy, and I love them because I like to use pink whenever I can. And this little moment right here, these are from True Tone. I love True Tone, by the way. So these are LEDs and they don't get hot. And this year they came out with these halos, which I think look so freaking pretty. So when I renovated, I did the color drench, but I decided to do wallpaper in the kitchen just to keep the spaces somewhat separate, even though they are open to one another. I love the wallpaper. It's from Cole & Sons, I believe. I think. This cat clock, I've always wanted one ever since I saw it on The Simpsons when I was a kid, but I got the girl version. So this is new, this is not vintage, but I think she's really, really fun. This little light over here, my daughter thought it was the ugliest thing ever, but I think it's so fun. I want my kitchen to feel like an Appalachian, like Meemaw, but that's like really eccentric, and Mrs. Claus. You know what I mean? Like that's the vibe that I go for in here. And I put, oh gosh, I got this pediment on Etsy, and I think that adds like a nice little focal point in this space because this board I could not take off without doing extensive repair to the wall, and I did not want to mess with the plaster, so I just left that up and decided to put the pediment over to kind of make it look a little nicer, I think. Because I do everything DIY. Me and my husband do everything ourselves, and somehow a lot of the plaster and drywall stuff has become my responsibility. So anyway, this is just a plant stand that matches my wicker outdoor set, and I thought it would look really cute with the poinsettia in here, and I was right. So I think it looks really, really cute. I just brought that inside. I try to use everything that I already have. I'm not big on buying a lot of new things unless they're old new things. So I love the trend, I suppose, of having like a little lamp in your kitchen, and honestly, it really does make it feel a lot warmer. So I just took and added some fringe to a lamp that I already had and put that there. And this is one of my favorite paintings. I've had this for, oh my gosh, forever. And I keep it in this spot. So I just put a few of my little putz houses up here, and I like to use die cuts too. So I always put these little reindeer right here because I think it's really fun having them hop across the windows. And I love putting wreaths on the doors too. And I got my this is a little vintage guy, little blow mold. And then more oranges with cloves in them. This isn't as magnificent as everything else, but my daughter Ruby, she is 2.5. She found a big bag of these cookie cutters at the thrift store. So this is her tree. This was her ideas, and so this is what her little tree is, because I don't like for the kids to touch the ornaments, the vintage ornaments, because they're breakable and they have lead paint. So anyway, that's her tree. I do consider myself a maximalist. I have a hard time letting go of things. We did do some deep cleaning this past summer, and I got rid of things, and I'm already regretting getting rid of those things. Sometimes when you find something and you don't have a spot for it, you just know, you know what I mean? There are things that I've put out this year that I haven't used for like 4 or 5 years, and I'm so glad that I kept that. So it's kind of a hoardery answer, and my basement is pretty full of thousands of ornaments and all kinds of other eccentric things that I've thrifted and collected over time. My favorite thing about my house is how cozy it feels. It feels like I feel like you can walk in and expect to smell like cookies, or you take a nap on the couch with a blanket. It doesn't feel like you can't touch anything. Like you can put your feet up on, the ottoman, and just feel welcome and safe. I always kind of say it's kind of woo-woo, but like I do it for like my inner child. I tried to create a space that I needed as a little girl. So now we're gonna head upstairs. I'm gonna show you my bedroom. Here we are, and this is the main bedroom, and as you can see, I have color drenched this room as well. There is a lot of Christmas in here, and really not any room goes untouched in this house. For the bed, I wanted to create a very glamorous moment, so we put up this canopy, and we just used like fiberglass frame, and I got curtains and then just bedazzled them with the fringe and the velvet ribbon on them. I got this headboard for $50 on Facebook Marketplace, and then I added the hot pink stripe here just to, I don't know, make it look a little better in my opinion, a little more fun. Lots of florals on here, mixing of patterns. I love this quilt. I couldn't find a pink rose quilt anywhere, so I bought this and just dyed it with Rit dye to make it the color that I wanted. And I was gifted this from Golden Yarrow, and they have beautiful, like this is a duvet cover, but I love that it's chenille and looks like it's vintage. So as you can see, I have a leopard print rug in here. Again, love leopard print. My husband has no problems with the pink bedroom, none whatsoever. He knows that this is my passion, decorating is my passion, and I mean, he has opinions on things. I wouldn't do anything that he absolutely hated. But yeah, no, he just lets me pretty much have free reign to do whatever I want and explore, you know, my creativity as much as I want in here. I wanted to kind of mimic how I did the green garland in the living room, but in a more affordable way. And also because I did the aluminum tree, I wasn't sure that green garland would look okay. I feel like, you know, I needed to stick with silver. So I just got some tinsel garland from Target and used command hooks and some screws because a few of them fell down, and then just made a ton of bows. And you can see I have two different colors of bows and materials because I just kept running out of fabric. I have made so many bows this year, it's kind of crazy. And then these are all vintage glass ornaments that I hung up on here, and I just did a variation of fuchsias and reds and in, you know, varying sizes. I tried to rein in the amount of color that I used, just because this is the coral is so bold in here. I got this vanity last year. It's from the 1920s. I love it. This makes me feel like a vintage starlet when I'm sitting here and doing my makeup. This is one of my favorite things ever, and I made little, I guess, kind of curtains with the garland. I just took little strips and wrapped floral wire and just kept adding it and shaping it the way that I wanted to. I have some little putz houses down here on the vanity, and this little swan with ornaments in it. I got these lamps, I forget what they're called, but these are from the 1920s as well. I have another one downstairs, and I think that it's so fun. And this little brass clam lamp that I got, I think I paid $5 for that a few years ago. Like, that's an insane price. Now it would be so expensive. And yeah, and then I got this little vintage ottoman. And actually, my grandparents had one almost just like that when I was growing up, so that's kind of fun. I got this tree back in 2020, but this is only the second year that I've actually put it out. It does shed a lot, and I didn't like to put it out with the kids because they would just brush up against it and there would be aluminum needles all over the floor. So I was like, well, I'll just, you know, put it on the dresser, and that'll keep it out of the way for them. I made the tree skirt that's on here. I just had some satin fabric and extra tassels that I used on those curtains and just whipped that up really quick. And I put some little putz houses underneath with some bottle brush trees. And then I have this cat. She's a little diva moment over here with her pink bow. So I wanted to do a big gallery wall because I wanted to do a frame TV because we do like to watch TV in here, and I wanted to kind of hide it as best I could. This tapestry I bought on Facebook Marketplace, and I actually painted his outfit pink and some of the flowers pink just to make it a little more fun. This was painted for me by an artist, I believe her name is Stephanie Barron. She painted that for me based off of the colors in my house, but this was back when I had a lime green ceiling in the living room. This is just thrifted art. This little wall pocket, these are vintage porcelain roses in there. This little heart chair is a fan favorite, and it is floating around my house at all times. I moved it up here to make room for the Christmas tree. It's been in the kitchen, the living room, the dining room. I got this for $10 back a few years ago at Salvation Army, and I love it so much. This is sentimental. It's ugly, but this little stand here, my pappy made, I think in the 50s in shop class in high school, and he kept it in his shed, and there's like black splotches from where he would like test spray paint on it to see if they still worked, and he passed a few years ago, so that's really sentimental to me. These were mirrors that I got on Facebook Marketplace and just did rub and buff on them because they were like brown ugly plastic before, to zhuzh them up. And I have some mid-century wall sconces there. And this nice little deer. I think I got this at Goodwill. It's kind of paying homage to my heritage in a weird way, I suppose. On each bedside table, I have these little Mr. and Mrs. Clauses, and these are actually made out of dish soap. So these were like DIY crafts that people used to do back in the 60s and 70s. So I think that's pretty cool. It has like sand inside of it. I guess these were like little kits you could buy. And I just have a couple little putz houses and little embroidered runners everywhere. So for the chandelier, I made it, I designed it, made it. I ordered like organic cotton fringe, and then I hand dyed all of the colors. And then my husband did the brass bands, everything, all of the working parts are brass. He was the one that made it like a working fixture. I just figured out how to make it look pretty. I used to sell these, but I don't anymore. And I had one of these in my dining room as well, but we just took it out for the orange one that's down there now. Home means to me a place where you feel it's your safety net, it's where you can grieve, it's where you can experience joy, it's where you can relax, it's where you can feel inspired. I don't know, it's everything. And that's why I think it's so important to have your home reflect your personality and your life's journey and the things that you love. Homeworthy, it's been so fun having you here today, but I have so much more decorating to do, so it's time to say goodbye for now. See you later.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 Days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays!
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, welcome back. I'm Diane Elizabeth. Come on in, I'm gonna show you how I decorate for Christmas.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, welcome back. I'm Diane Elizabeth, and today I'm going to take you on a Christmas home tour, and I'm going to show you how I decorate and host for Christmas. You may remember this on the last tour. This is my garden room, and this is where we do all of the entertaining. So I really go all out here. And also, this is a place where when my parents come out to visit for Christmas, they stay. There's a Murphy bed right behind you on the other side, and they stay in this room. But I'm going to share with you how I decorate the garden room. Let's start with the Christmas tree, of course. The first thing I want to tell you that you might not know is it is on wheels, and I call it like a Christmas tree straitjacket. So it's at the bottom and you just pull it all the way up and store it, wheel it out, wheel it back in, but I do take off all the breakable ornaments and the ribbon. But it's worked out so well. This is our first year using it, and I have to say it saved a lot of time. So this year, I did something a little bit different and I pushed myself creatively. I try to do that every year. And I did a top hat Christmas tree topper. Usually I do a star or a ribbon. And I was at Scottsdale Marketplace and these ladies were in their little boutique area and convinced me. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it, but I love the way that it looks. And I also added some magnolia to kind of tie it in with my style. And I would say that my style for Christmas is probably traditional, but I don't really have any rules. I love Wedgwood, and I mentioned in the last episode, if you want to start a collection, tell your friends because they will help you build that collection really quickly. And so this is what has happened with my Wedgwood ornaments. My birthday's very close to Christmas, well, the month before, month of November. And so this has built up my collection really quick. And just to point out a couple special ornaments, when I travel, I do pick up ornaments. Ashford Castle in Ireland. This was from Amalfi Coast just this past summer. And gifts from a friend, Fortnum and Mason in London. These snow globe ornaments. They're vintage from the 1960s from Antique Gatherings. These are like sunburst ornaments. I love how they just overlay on top of the tree. And these are currently at West Elm right now. And Mount Vernon, just different places throughout my travels. I thought I would try something different the past few years. I was kind of tired of wrapping presents, if I'm being honest. So I found bags, and I just love that you can just put it in there and reuse it. It's great for the environment. It's also just a time saver. And just put a little tag, who it's from. I mean, add some tissue paper if you also want to do a little bit of wrapping, but they come in different patterns. You can find them on Etsy and certain boutiques, and so I really love that touch. Since we do the ornament party here, I would love to share some tips that I implement that make it unique and fun. Please feel free to take these for your next ornament party. So I'm a firstborn, so I'm also a people pleaser, and I've been to a lot of ornament exchange parties. And when they're wrapped, you never know what you're gonna get. It's kind of a gamble, right? Especially when you don't know everybody. Obviously, pink is not gonna work in my Christmas decor, and it's kind of a bummer when you just get one right off the bat that's not gonna work. So I came up with the idea of having labels, and the labels I have is neutral, red and green, colorful, and I'm just adding this year, blue and white. And so my guests would come with their wrapped ornament, place them in a certain section. So I'd probably clear this whole area off and just have these frames with the labels. And at least when you start, when you pick one, it's gonna at least go with your color. That's like a lot better. So I've seen some friends start to do this after I did it, and I love that. And the second thing I do is, instead of drawing numbers, what I would recommend, if you have a party, maybe under 15 people, instead of drawing numbers, you have them fill out a personal fun fact. And they can put their name on it if you have time and you want to guess. But what I do as the hostess is I draw the first one, and just randomly, and I read it out loud. And this is actually the main activity of the evening. It's breaking the ice. And we are laughing for hours. We have found out that friends sleepwalk. We found out talents of clapping with one hand, things that people have collected. It is a hoot. And so when I draw the person, they volunteer, or we guess, and then they come up, they pick up their ornament, and then I hand the bowl to them, and they draw the next person, so everyone is involved. But it is the highlight of the night, and really, we have these parties just to gather. So something we added was molding the last time you guys were here, and I already had this accent wall, and I just needed molding to kind of look cohesive, so I used the same board, and we went around and just kind of really finished the room. So you might notice there's a lot of garland up, and I want to give you a tip on how I make it efficient. So I bought a lot of cable clips and I nailed them in, and they're just at the top of the trim. And that way they're white, my walls are white, it just is easily concealed through the rest of the year. And I slip a zip tie through them, so it's really secure, and that's all I do. I was patting myself on the back this season when I was putting everything up. I don't think I really have a theme for Christmas. I really stick with the same traditional decor. I add a lot of pieces. This year I've added a lot of pieces, a lot of red. I've realized that red is absolutely a must-have for me during Christmas. So when I look in a room, the way that I fill it is, in my mind, I ask myself, where's the red in that corner? Or if there's red, if there's an absence of red, I know that I need to fill it with something Christmas because I don't have red in my home most of the year. These are some bows that are ready-made. I love the ready-made bows. This was a set from Frontgate. They kind of have a vintage feel. It's a velvet. And I love the way that looks. Last time I asked you guys for name ideas for my little dog, not, my large dog. And thank you for the ideas. I picked the name. Well, let me first tell you, because my husband Benjamin bought this for me for my birthday, we will name him Benji, which was also my husband's nickname until he hit high school. And I put a little ribbon scarf on him, and I put scarves on almost every little figurine you will see in the house. Just makes it a little playful. So this is set up this way when I have parties I'm entertaining, but when my parents come in and stay for about 2 weeks, the bed comes down, and this is the Murphy bed back here. But for now, it is kind of my Nutcracker bookcase. So I didn't realize I was starting another collection, until I pulled out all my Nutcrackers. And some of these I've actually purchased while going to the ballet, the Nutcracker. So what I've done over the years is when I buy a new one, I write on the bottom the year and who I went with. So this was 2023, and I went with my best friend Megan. And so I still need a couple more characters up there. I have room. This is the guest powder bath, which will be used often this season. And just a couple touches is having the disposable hand towels. Good old Mackenzie Childs is just so charming and cute, but decorate it just a little bit. And during the ornament party and everyone's in the garden room, I close these up, and it just makes it so intimate and just so private right here. And now I'm going to go back on the other side and show you the dining room. Welcome to my dining room. I host now it's formal now, it wasn't formal 19 years ago, but this will be our 19th dinner. I call them my girl gang. We met through pageantry many, many years ago. We wear our pajamas. We do wear our pajamas still for a very formal setting, but the tradition was that when we were in our 20s, our Christmas party would go until 2 a.m. One time I think it went till 4 a.m. So we thought we should just be in pajamas the whole time. It does not go that late anymore, but we still love the tradition of pajamas. So anyways, this is my tablescape for that upcoming 19th year together. And I would love to share some really special things on this table. I want to point out that I have faux mixed with real. And usually, sometimes people don't really like faux, but we live in Phoenix. It is so dry here. If this was fresh, it'd be crisp in 2 weeks. And my entertaining season is about a month and a half to 2 months here. So that's not gonna work. And it's also gonna be too expensive. So I like to mix with fresh, and at least you can feel like it's more budget friendly to just do 2 bouquets, and it's also height. These centerpieces are from Williams-Sonoma, as well as most of the Tablescape. My favorite are these etched rose goblets. I purchased them at an estate sale. The woman I heard was, I want to say 102. She was definitely over 100. She was still alive. She was just downsizing. It's probably going to be me one day. These knives I bought at the French market from the guy who carved them. And it's just such a sweet memory to bring these out. We still love the chairs that roll. These are from Ballard Designs with a slip cover on them. And this year I decided that it would be great to have plates that weren't really Christmas specific. And they're red. This is the Aaron Lauder collaboration with Williams-Sonoma. I could use this for Valentine's Day, a garden party. I just think, well, we know I love red during Christmas, so this still also works, and it has the green in it as well. And these napkin rings I picked up at a thrift store. I saw them in a bowl. They were pretty affordable, and thought, I really love them. So I went back and I bought them all. They are still there for me. There is a Nutcracker candlesticks. There's a pair, and this was a recent birthday gift to me from a girlfriend of mine. And they're just so sweet. And I thought I would pair them with these crystal candlesticks from Alice Lane Home. And during the holidays, I like to change out my chandelier shades. They are usually white floral, And I just love the black with the gold. It just kind of brings the light down to the table, and the gold is just such a warm hue. And during my ornament party, this is just covered in buffet style desserts and snacks. So what I added, there's a lot of things I added, but I found these recently at a thrift store as well. They have etched on their 1977 holly ball. I believe these are vintage Reed and Barton, if that's correct. And again, I just bought them all because I thought, why not? And I didn't know how I was gonna decorate with them, but when I was putting together this tablescape, I thought I wanted them to be the focal point because they're vintage, they're sweet, and I love how shiny they are, and they're silver plated, so I had to polish them. And this tablecloth is from an estate sale. I love finding linens. I love when I go to an estate sale and I walk in, I'm like, this was a hostess, and I can buy some of that retired hostess things. Now, you may notice white napkins. A little dairy depending on what you're serving, but I have a tip because I had recently had a dinner party with tomato soup and I had white napkins. And after dinner, I thought to myself, why did I do that? But it was a great challenge that I wanted to share this with you. So immediately I used an OxyClean. It has the nubs on it, and I just tackled all the stains right before I went to bed, or even just the next morning is fine. I let it sit and I wash it. And if something doesn't come out, that's when I use baking soda but really the and is fresh lemon. I just use some lemon juice and I put it on the stain and I lay it out in the sun. We have so many sunny days here in Phoenix, so I'm super lucky. Gone, like a brand new napkin. So that is my tip for stains on white napkins. And this little area right here is everything's new, well, old, but new to me. And this is from Antique Gatherings, one of my favorite antique stores here. And what's special about it is if you wind it up, it plays Silent Night, like a music box. We'll have to try that again. Oh, there we go. It just reminds me of like those music boxes. And these vintage ornaments I got at the flea market just this past weekend. I look at the Santa. The price was so good. I actually had sent my husband to Target to find some filler things, and I was like, you know what, those just don't look right. And then I went to the flea market, cheaper, more personality. It's so worth just checking out your local thrift store or an antique store. And now I'm gonna take you right into the kitchen. So this is probably the focal point of the entertaining spaces as well, just before you go into the garden room. And I like to do something a little different every year, but I love a flocked garland. And believe it or not, this is from Walmart. And it had a lot of other things on it that I didn't love, and I just cut them out. It's a budget-friendly tip. And I also think anybody knows if you have flocked, you should probably put a mask on because your sinuses and all the things in it, but it's so worth it. It's so magical. I love to dress up my bottles because they need an outfit for the holidays too. But these are just simply napkin rings. And this is a set from Williams-Sonoma, and I thought you could even use a scrunchie if you think about it, or any napkin ring. It doesn't even have to have a bow. But what a great way to dress up your bottles and also give them as gifts to your hostesses. And this is kind of the place where I would have the drinks, the snacks during a party. And I have a hostess checklist. So I have mastered all of the things that I have repeatedly done for weeks before, the menu, day before. So I will include this on my blog, dianaelizabethblog.com. And you guys can get that list. But I like to put it behind like a sheet, and I mark it off and I wipe it off so I can reuse it every time. And when I set the buffet, I thought that I would share. Some know what this is, some don't, but these are vintage Princess House, and they are for your utensils. I use them for the buffet. So next to food, instead of leaving it in the mac and cheese, I can place them right here, and it just keeps the counter clean. And I think a good price point for these, you can find them at thrift stores, would be under $10, under $5, of course, even better. This cake stand and tiered stand, these are from Frontgate. These ginger jars are from Williams-Sonoma, and again, I I just put the napkin rings on there because I didn't feel like tying a bow. I was like, this is so much easier. And also these bows are from Williams-Sonoma as well. They have a, let me see if I can grab one right here. It's just a twist tie. And it's, you know, you gotta make holiday decorating easy because there's so much to do. So that's a way that makes it easy. And I believe in decorating every nook and cranny, in case you didn't notice. So I put up some Christmas decorations just right by the sink. This is a photo of my husband and I, our first Christmas portrait together. And this is a Victorian feather tree from Antique Gatherings. Look at these ornaments. Hold on, let's look at this little basket with mushrooms in it. And the vintage ornaments, just darling. So this area, just put in all the little garlands and the cranberries to add some red. I purchased this, I think it's a horse, in Sweden on my trip. And my neighbor, when her mother passed away, she gifted me a lot of her belongings. And one of them was this one, this horse right here. And I just love that it's like a little family. So I bring them both out here on Christmas. So a lot of things in my house, obviously, you know, I love the thrift store. I love antique stores and I like to get a bargain. And so a lot of ornaments are from there. I'm going to show you something recently that I picked up from 2 antique stores and how I personalize them. So I found this frame at a flea market in front of Camelback Antiques and I didn't buy it and it had haunted me for months. I had no plans for it. And then one day I walked back into Camelback Antiques and it was there. And I just snatched it up. I had no plans for it. It was under a couch for months. Again, it's just that I knew I wanted it. And there was an old photo in there, which I also can't throw the guy away. He's like also under my couch. So when I see an oval frame, I just think of silhouettes. And you guys know I love silhouettes. My last tour, I talked about the silhouettes I have around my house in my 40th. But I thought, what about seasonally if I did something? So here is Santa's silhouette. I found the clip art online. I enlarged it, then I traced it. So Santa's here, or as they call it, Father Christmas. And I picked up these vintage Italian cherubs and these are from Antique Gatherings. And I just put a sweet little ribbon around it so they have little scarves. So, I mean, what's more Christmas than angels, right? Now we are right off of the kitchen. We're gonna go into my laundry mudroom, which you did not get to see last tour, but I want to introduce you to my new best friend who helps me with hosting. Her name is Mealy, and she is a rotary iron, and she's amazing because with as many parties and entertaining that I have, I need to turn over napkins, linens, all the things, bed sheets, whatever. And all I have to do is I turn her on, and let me just give you a little. It heats up pretty quick, but I'm not gonna run anything through it, but this is the rack that you put it on. So you would slide something in here. Again, let's pretend this is damp for time's sake. And this would come down. And look at that. I can even speed it up if I wanted to. And it's incredible. And this is how I'm gonna get stuff done, guys. This is how I'm gonna have a party every day. I'm just kidding, but I could with this. So this has been an amazing help. And you can get this rotary iron at Williams-Sonoma. And since I will be spending quite a bit of time here, I need to look at something cute. So I decorated this. I picked this little smoking Santa up at the Christmas markets in Germany. And then these are from my visit in Prague, these little things. And I just thought they were a perfect little area to just remember my great times as I'm just ironing away. And I found some more things to put up. This was actually my mother's, and I grew up looking at this, and I think she's just clearing stuff out of the house, and so she gave it to me on my last trip, and I carried it on the plane. And this is an area where a lot of my friends drop off their coats and bags, and this is also our entrance in and out before we go into the open air garage. And now I am coming out of the laundry mudroom, and we are in the backyard. The kitchen garden's right here, but I'm gonna take you to the main backyard and show you how I decorated. And now we are in the backyard, and I would love to tell you about this garland because guess what? It took me 20 minutes to put up this year. It didn't take that last year. The first year is always the worst, right? It's the first install. So I want to give you a little tip. When you take everything down, keep in mind for the following year. So just like my Christmas tree straitjacket, make it easy on yourself. So I left all of these garlands zip tied together, and there's hooks, which are permanent. And all I did is I just took it off. I didn't cut the zip ties, any of that. And then I marked which side is north, which side is south. And that all I had to do was hook it back on. Easy peasy. And these topiaries are from, these are faux, they're from Pottery Barn. I had some right over by the other entrance and exit. And I just put some of these twist tie bows on it, make it festive. And because Phoenix has just wonderful weather for our winters, very, very mild, we are outside a lot. So I had to decorate the outdoor space because it's another room to decorate, and why not? So let me just show you what I've done. Again, I looked around and there's a lot of green, and I thought, where do I need to add red? So poinsettias in the back, and these lanterns adding the bows. This is my furniture from Patty O Furniture, a Arizona-based company that is sold nationally. Something I learned when I worked with patio furniture is that in the wintertime, not with a wood burning fireplace, but with gas, it's okay to have an umbrella. As long as you have enough clearance, it keeps the warmth here. It acts as like a ceiling. So just make sure there's plenty of clearance and it's gas, but it really cozies up and you can stay and linger longer. Don't know if you saw how cute this was, but it's my little reindeer. It's moss and it's a live ivy on it. This would be a fantastic hostess gift. It is, it would be a generous hostess gift, but it is just, I mean, so sweet. And I know you're gonna ask where, so you can order it off of Williams-Sonoma. I think they work with a local nursery and they send it, but I put a scarf on him though. He didn't come with a scarf, just a little ribbon. And now let me take you into the living room where you would be entering. When you first enter my home, the first thing you will see is me as Mariah Carey. I'm actually seeing her this weekend. It's her Christmas show. It will be my 7th time seeing her. I'm a huge fan. And this is one of our Christmas cards a couple years ago. Photography is one of my background businesses, and I wanted to do creative Christmas cards. So paired with this was my husband, and we did a Home Alone cover, and these are our dads as the Wet Bandits. Then we had to follow up the next year, obviously, with Home Alone 2. So Lost in New York, and we also have both of our dads there as well as the Wet Bandits. And I was the pigeon lady. That is not going in a frame. If you want to see it, I posted on my social media, so you can find me on Instagram, DianaElizabeth_, and you could scroll back. It is on there, but that's not gonna go on the Christmas decor part. This is a little tree that has some silk animal ornaments, and these belong to my grandmother, and they were on our tree when we were little growing up. So these are all of them, and just a little nostalgia here. I found this paper mache bow at a thrift store, probably like $1. It was just a good find. And I love twinkling lights. I think some people want steady lights or whatever. I put so much effort into Christmas. I want it to look like a Las Vegas billboard in here. I want to catch your attention. So twinkle lights everywhere. Here's our mantle. And I try to do something different every year. And this year I wanted to be a little whimsy. So I found these ornaments. I actually bought these after Christmas from Mackenzie Childs. I love a good after Christmas sale. It is really hard because you can't put it up yet. You have to wait a whole year, but then it's really exciting. So these are up for the first time, and I wanted it whimsical. These stocking holders are old from Ballard Designs. I wish they still sold them and made them because I would get some more. And you might be wondering why I have 4 stockings. I am so blessed that my parents fly out from Northern California and stay with us for 2 weeks for Christmas. So I get to be the grown-up now and spoil my parents. So I bought these stockings. There's still stuff in here. At Scottsdale Marketplace, and they have a little shop in the back that does monogram. So I did our initials. I totally feel like the parent here. I love it. And I know I'm very, very blessed to have my parents still around. And so I treasure the time that we have and that they come out. And this is a faux wood burning fireplace. It is a wood burning fireplace, but I found out that I have sinus issues when wood is burned. So I bought this because I love the ambiance of a fire. And yeah, I could probably like install gas, but it's messy right now, like the idea of demo and doing that, and expensive. So I found this for, I don't know, not that expensive, I think, on Amazon, and it can be a heater, but we don't really need that right now. We just wanted to look. So I love that. And if you put it behind a screen, no one really notices. They just see that there's something, and it gives me the ambiance without affecting the way that I breathe. And what's great is you can put chocolate in here now, and it's not gonna melt by the time Christmas comes. And I found this paper mache Santa. He looks heavy, he's super light. And when I bought him, the ladies, I think they wanted to steal it from me who worked there, but I do rotate at estate sales and thrift stores twice. And I didn't see him until the second round, and he was on the ground. And I don't even know how I missed him, but I'm glad that I found him and he's mine now. Now these are all the same pillow inserts because there's not room for more pillows, but lots of pillow covers. So most of these are from Pottery Barn recently. The back has faux fur, and I love a good tartan. And we do Eurosham here and the quilted, and it's so beautiful. And I just looked in this room and thought, where do I need red and where do I need green? And pillows it was. And if there's an animal or a little figurine of a person, it gets a scarf. Now, something I thought with someone like me who has a lot of Christmas and ornaments or themes, instead of getting multiple Christmas trees because of space or just the hassle, is decorate your garland. So this is what I did. I found these ornaments at an estate sale. Some are new, but look at this bird in the basket. I mean, just darling. And I was gonna use these on the mantle, but again, I had too many ornaments. So I thought, let's put this on the garland. So this would be really great if you have a small space or a child's room so they don't have to actually have a Christmas tree. Just put some garland up. And this is my vintage ornament wreath. I love the colors in it. It's not my traditional colors, but it was so sweet. I found this in the garage. Sometimes when I go to estate sales, I go straight to the garage because that is where all the Christmas things are. I know you guys saw this on the last episode of the home tour of mine. This is our Harmon Hinge door. This is always closed during entertaining season, but I'm gonna take you down the hallway and we're gonna stop into my closet. We're gonna go through the bedroom first. I have never done this before, but I had so much garland that I thought, let's just add it to the bedroom. And this was really fun and I love it. And I just dressed it up with some velvet ribbon. All right, now let's go into the dressing room because I need to show you my holiday clothes. Welcome back to the closet. What I like to do is I clear a rack. I just move some things around and I put all of my holiday outfits in one area because it gets me excited for the season, and it also reminds me to wear it because the season is pretty short. And let me point out a few things. You need a few things. Like this is my Mariah Carey outfit. I am thinking about wearing it to the concert, but we will see. For walking around the block, obviously to spread holiday joy. Cookie decorating. I found this at an estate sale and I cracked up. I put it back and I was like, oh wait, if that made me laugh, I have to get it. So cute. And just all the sparkly things to remind me to celebrate the season. I do like to decorate just a little bit in the closet because I do spend a lot of time. So these are glitter bottle brush trees. They're from Anthropologie many years ago. A little Santa. And this was actually supposed to be my Christmas tree topper this year. I know bows are a thing. I just changed my mind because I wanted something unique and I like the top hat a little bit better. But I was also not wanting to return it at the same time. So I found a place for it and I think it looks pretty cute here for the time being. Thank you for coming over. And before we go, I'd love to share with you my favorite holiday decor find. It's a life-size elf. Thanks for joining. I hope you guys have a great time entertaining all of your friends and enjoying one another's company.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.